Thanks for joining us here on Pineapple Podcast. My name is Matt. I am joined with my friend Tyler, Josh and Dave are in the back, and we have a great guest with us today, Ashley Pater. She is a phenomenal singer-songwriter. We are very excited to have you. Today we got a chance to talk with her about some amazing things. We did everything from when she got started all the way to touring to her new single coming out March 22nd. So we really hope you guys enjoy the show. It was a phenomenal conversation, and we're incredibly proud to have her.
Can you do it again, but like
Nailed it.
better?
Was that okay?
Can you do it again, but better?
No, that was
No, that was great. We all know that was great, man.
Yeah, that sounded really good.
Awesome. Well, we're incredibly happy to have you join us with us today. I'm excited, really excited. Like
Yeah.
I said, getting a chance to have somebody, I've stalked you on social media, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I've showed it to my girls. They absolutely think you're phenomenal as well. So it is an absolute honor to have you with us in the studio today, to be
It
recording
is.
this and having a conversation with you is very cool.
Well, I'm like very thankful to be here, so thank you guys for having me.
That's awesome. Off screen, we were kind of talking to your dad about just when you got started. And so I thought what we do for those of you that are getting to know you for the first time, including myself, because I love hearing the story of how you got going. I would love to hear when you your passion for music, when it kind of started and when you got into it.
Yeah, so just honestly, when I was in the womb already, my mom actually wrote a song for me. And so I guess hearing that, I know that there was a little bit of music involved in my life already. And then as a child, I grew up singing and dancing around the house. My dad claims that he can't carry a tune in the bucket and, that he plays the radio and all that kind of jazz. But my mom can sing, and she won't admit it, but she's a very good singer. So my dad likes to say that I got my ham from him because he loves a crowd, and I got the talent from my mom. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and so from there, I guess. Oh, and also my grandfather, he has taught himself how to play 5 different instruments, which is quite crazy.
Which instruments?
Banjo, violin, and then the other ones are all Chinese, which
Oh,
I only
cool.
know how to say
Iru?
one. It's like a Yiwu.
Iru
and-
or whatever. Yeah, I don't know how
Yeah.
to say it.
And
And
he
then
taught,
the
sorry,
other
did you
ones
say
I'm
he
not
taught
sure.
himself?
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah, very talented.
That's very cool. Holy smoke. Yeah, it's interesting because you talk about, so are you an only child?
Yep, just me.
That's awesome. It's interesting when I was on TikTok checking you out. I was like, I saw that, and I wanted to talk to you about that because I saw that one little clip of you when your song came on the radio, and you called for your dad, and I was like, oh my goodness. And so I wanted to ask you, like, that feeling, the first time you heard yourself on the radio, what did that feel like for you?
Well, it's definitely crazy, because like we were talking about earlier, you put all this work into it in hopes for people to actually hear it. And then I've done a few radio interviews, and my song was played on the radio as well, but I've never been there to hear it. So it was definitely a very surreal moment. And I'm glad I was cutting a QE because it was for New Zealand.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really
so
cool.
that was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's a moment. Like, what about for you? Like when you first heard, like, your song was being played on the radio.
Well, our song never got played on the radio, technically. I think it got, it was on the internet and streaming stuff like that, but we never got on, we didn't win the seeds. But it would have been pretty cool.
So I should have never brought
You
that
should
up.
have brought
with
this.
A lot
This
of
is
fan
extremely
videos.
embarrassing.
We had some
Okay, you know
the
what?
lyric
Okay,
videos
I
with
can
some
tell you how I
images,
felt
yeah?
the first time I saw, because we had one song we wrote just out of high school, and we got to record it in Mushroom Studios. That was from a Battle of the Bands thing that we won.
Yeah.
And it kind of spread out further than we thought. So that we'd hear people would talk about it or reach out to us from different countries. And I remember being like, oh wow, it was our first actual recording of a song. And even now, years down the road, I'll look on YouTube and it's under Cetra, City of Fallen Angels, and people have made videos to our songs of because they sound kind of sad, I guess. And it's
Sad
some
sideshows.
People
Because
sitting
they
there.
sound kind of sad. Yeah, people are sitting at the
It's
beach just looking
Yeah,
in the rain.
swinging in a chair,
Yeah, right?
despair.
Looking
And
out the window.
Yeah.
But the best one, someone took that game called RuneScape,
Oh, yeah.
and they basically, it's them playing it, but then they overdub the lyrics over top of the character's head, so it's them doing the
it was
the
you.
lyrics.
Don't
Yeah,
lie.
I know somebody made it. I don't know who that was,
It was you.
but I felt pretty cool about that. I was like, wow, that's pretty
awesome.
sweet. And then someone else is deleted now, but they made it was a video that said I locked myself in my room all night, and just to see if I'd go crazy. And I don't know if it was the song that was driving her crazy or she just thought it was fitting, but Yeah.
The song was so good. She
Yeah.
had to lock
Just-
herself in a room.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
No one else. Yeah, I can only have this song.
So nice.
So so New Zealand? How did it get big in New Zealand?
I actually don't know. About, I don't know, a few months ago now, the radio station Galaxy 107 FM, they reached out to me and wanted to do an interview. So I was like, all right, yeah, let's do it. And just in small talk beforehand, they were saying how they've been playing my songs for a year prior. And I
Whoa.
was like, oh, I had no idea. And then so after the interview, it kind of, it sparked this relationship with them, and they started playing my music more. And apparently my song Red Sneakers had gotten, what was it, like almost 2,000 requests in one
Wow.
day. And
That's
I was like,
amazing.
That's crazy.
wow. And here I was not even knowing it was being
Yeah.
played. So that was crazy. And we had another one of those, oh my goodness.
Yeah, wow.
I had a celebration waffle.
Yeah, there you go.
What'd you have on
Celebratory
top? What'd you have on
waffle.
top of it?
Beg your pardon?
What was on top of the celebration waffle?
Oh, it was a breakfast waffle. So it had this nice little, I forgot. Okay, types of making an egg. We have hard boiled, scrambled,
Poached.
It was
Poached eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you just questioned me for a second. I'm like,
Matt, eggs. You did not research the
white eggs.
eggs.
Yeah, right.
Farm
White egg,
fresh.
green eggs
No, I
and
said
ham.
how it's cooked, not.
I know.
But yeah, so like the poached egg.
You're not
the
allowed
little
to poach
fancy
eggs anymore, though.
thingies. You know.
Really?
Thanks, Ty.
So it's interesting because one of the questions my daughter wanted me to ask you earlier is your favorite food, which I thought that's why I was going to talk about.
Oh. I don't really have a favorite food.
No.
What about favorite time for breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Yeah, favorite.
Oh, okay, dinner.
Ooh, dinner time?
Yeah, dinner's my favorite. Or midnight snacks.
Midnight snack.
Yeah.
So
Right before a live stream.
going back to
There you go.
this radio station, so they approached you. Did they say how they found you? Was it from people requesting? You said they're because that's amazing. 2,000 people requesting is
sure.
phenomenal. But did they mention how they? Yeah.
I don't
The reason why I
remember.
ask is because I'm curious because that's all one of the cool things is being able to then utilize social media to target that area, to go after people in that area, to join your community, because that's something that absolutely fascinates me is from the beginning is creating that community. And that's one thing I want to talk to you about is that you've actually done a really, really great job of creating a community online. And so I kind of wanted to talk to you about what that journey has looked like for you, because I think a lot of people can learn from what you've done, what you are doing, and then I think also too if there's any little hiccups where you're like, yeah, that didn't really work, or it did work, or before I even get into that, because I think we're rushing ahead, I was totally interested in hearing from 8 till now, kind of like a little bit of just what your life has looked like through music, because
Yeah.
what is that, man?
9 years.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So you've accomplished a lot in that time. So first instrument that you picked up that you were like, okay, I feel really cool about this.
Well, I started with, it was kind of like the typical kid piano lessons, and I did that for a few years, but then I kind of weaned off of it because I was more interested in the performance side of things, so I didn't want to go down the whole road of learning traditional piano. And so then I picked up the guitar at, I think, 10, and I don't know, from there I ended up picking up the piano again, and this time teaching myself. The guitar, I had a coach, Larry Church, which we found is in our little
that's
small
wicked.
world bubble.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like an uncle.
And then, oh yeah, just for some background, he is the retired bass player for the band Trooper. And then from there, I also picked up the ukulele, as every, teenage girl does. And, bass is just like guitar, and I had to pick up some drums, and, from there we kind of just kept going.
That's awesome. And so now, I know that you play predominantly as a piano and guitar would be, if you're writing especially, is that kind of your go-to, both of those?
Yeah,
Do you have
definitely.
a favorite when you're writing?
Recently it's been the piano.
Yeah.
Because you can see all your options kind of thing. But I don't know, it just kind of depends on the mood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so do you remember when you wrote your first song?
I don't remember the exact moment I wrote my first song, but before writing my more traditional "This is a song," I would come home from school. We lived a few houses away from my elementary school at the time, and on my way home, I would sing to myself, and I ended up writing songs when I got home. So I'd get home, and I'm just by myself, and I'd start singing about what happened to my day. in my day, and so I'd be like, oh my goodness, this person did this to me today, and that's like me in second
very
grade.
Disney
going
style.
home.
She's
Awesome.
totally lying. This is like this happened yesterday. She's still singing like that.
No, early grad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah,
That's awesome.
What was your first song about?
it was called Southbound. Well, it's still called Southbound. I think. Okay, I think I'm getting the story right, and if I'm not, my dad's in the background like, but my dad, I believe he had a school project where they had to make an album cover, and so the album didn't have to exist, but they were to make their own album cover, and I think it was Going North on the Nowhere Road. I may be wrong, but I think I'm right, and so from that I wrote this song called Southbound about somebody. Oh, okay. I got it now. Oh my goodness. Okay. So I wrote this song called Southbound, and it was about somebody who just had to leave the town. They didn't want to, but there was just something pulling them to leave. And so it was kind of about how you're going to miss your old life, but it's something that you need to do, and you got to go to the next step. So an 8-year-old writing the song is quite deep, but that's what happened.
Sorry, you were
Yeah.
8 when you wrote
Isn't that
that?
crazy?
Oh my goodness, that's
It was also an
phenomenal.
8-minute long song.
Yeah, it was an opera. Like
1
it was
minute for every
fully
year.
like that's absolutely phenomenal. So that was one of so from then till now, obviously you've grown like immensely in your ability. I mean, we were talking about this just a little bit before we went live that you know, you've worked really hard at your craft, and you can tell. Like one thing that I love about watching you when I see you perform, whether it be the clips that you sent me or whether it's on social media or whatever it may be, is that it looks effortless. And I
Yeah.
just have always admired that, and I've always thought of that as something that I just aspire to. Is when you see people sing and you're like, wow, they could just do that for days. It's effortless. You do it, and it's phenomenal. You have a gorgeous voice, and I know that it's a lot of work. Like it's a lot of work to get to that place.
Well, and also she's like found her voice, you know, like it's got a specific sound to it, right? Like, and
Yeah.
and she got full control over it. That's what I noticed, like when I was filming, because you get to hear it all natural, right? And it was just like, just the way, like, there's so much even to how you say each word. Like I know when we were in the studio, like they're so picky on the way you end words and stuff, and so you can tell how much time you put into the songs you have learned or you've written on making sure it's like the right words for the right part, and yeah,
Right vowel sounds.
yeah.
So I was gonna ask, like, you know, I know what I was like when I was a kid, and the people that I looked up to, and then I would sing like them, act like them, like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like, so for growing up when you were, say, 10, was there an artist that you were like, oh my goodness, I was absolutely in love with this artist, and I would copy kind of their style, or
I'm not really sure. I took influence from Shawn Mendes and Sabrina Carpenter for the writing styles. At the time,
what stood out to you about the writing styles?
I'm not. It's kind of like like the kind of that floating songwriting rule where everything's very general but very specific, and so they seem to paint a clear picture without painting the picture. I don't know. I
So
just
it could be
love
multiple
that about
things,
it.
I guess. Like,
It'll appeal
to
can mean
everybody.
different- Yeah.
Yeah,
it
so you
mean
can put your
something
own
different.
story on it.
That's very cool.
That's what I really like about it, and I think a very good songwriting tool is to be able to give the listener the opportunity to put their story in it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Do you write
awesome.
your lyrics before or after you got the music?
It depends on the song, honestly. I have a really good collection of voice memos on my phone of just things that pop
Yeah.
into my head, whether it's a melody or a lyric. I have little lyric fragments I write down on a list. Sometimes the whole song just comes out, I sit down and there's
Yeah.
a song. So really it just depends.
That's awesome.
It's cool when a song just flows together sometimes, when it like feels like it writes itself. You're like, oh, it's going so well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
It's interesting because I know for myself that I would always get, I had a rule when I would write, and it was when I always wanted to write from my heart. I've always been that. I wrote from like a deeply empathetic place a lot of times, where so much so that it would be painful to sometimes sing the songs once they were completed. But I always had a rule, like I found that when I would write from my heart, it was so easy. It's always been that way. But when my head would kick in, all of a sudden I realized I would regret some of the decisions that I'd made when I was writing. And I think because I'd start to write how I thought the song should go, or how I
Yeah.
thought a lyric should go, or how I thought people were going to really like it. And then I learned as I went, like, okay, when I get that feeling, sometimes I would just take a step back and kind of collect myself before coming back to writing it again. Because it's one of those things that I like, you'd be in the flow And I sometimes wondered if it was myself knocking myself out of the flow, and then I was like, oh, I'll just make up for it by using my mind. And then I didn't like where the songs would go, and they would eventually find their place once I allowed my heart to speak again.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm always so curious to hear of how others people write, because when I would share things of, like it was really hard for me to sing certain songs, and I shared that with you guys in the past, that there's ones where I was like, oh, they wanted to play them live, and I was like, man, like I'll bawl, like it guts me to sing that song, because I wrote it for somebody that I deeply care about, and I felt it so deep that when I would sing it live, I would, like, it just cut me to the core, because it was such an intimate place, and I remember not really wanting to play it live. And sometimes I'm like, man, I just really wish I'd have written, we talked about it earlier, like I really wish I'd have written some more happier songs,
Yeah.
or just, tried a little bit happier content. But I know for myself that was a big thing for me, as I wrote from like very empathetic places, and that's why I think it's so cool to hear how you come up with the inspiration of this, because I know now, like, I find so much joy in writing, and I write every day, pick up the guitar, write every day. It never stops. I mean, and you probably experienced it. I wake up in the night with music since I was a little kid. It's always going through my head. My phone is full of voice memos, and now it includes my girls, because they're incredibly creative, and we write together as well. But I do find so much joy now in writing from like that perspective. Like, I love Sean, and that's one of the things about his songs that I love, is that it can mean something to each person, and I'm like, oh, it's an inspiring way to write, because I just naturally didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I like being pushed to think again, even in the way that I write, and how it connects and resonates with people.
When did you get to the point, like, I know for me, I think I was we started playing music in like grade 9 or grade 10, and then by grade 11 for me, when I was like, you know what, this is what I want to do, and I was just kind of like, I'm not going to school, I'm gonna do this, and then I felt so like relieved, because I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do, I like this makes me happy, and then I was like, that's it. And any job I had after that, if I had a show, they booked me on that day, I'm like, well, sorry, you better find somebody, because that's
Guess
my
I
first
quit.
priority.
Yeah.
It's my last day.
See ya.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's like at Olive Garden when I left, like on the spot, the Paris was his name, or Perry. He was just like, "You're really fucking me over, Tyler."
You're like, that's what a rock star does.
Yeah, that's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. And living the life.
Yeah.
I'll take those breadsticks
I'll
to
take
go.
those breadsticks.
Give me those breadsticks and hospitaliana.
I'll actually take a second order of breadsticks.
Me and Josh worked together at Olive Garden back in the day.
I thought you guys were gonna say, take those breadsticks and
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, we weren't
the
that
secret
rock
sauce.
star. We were not that rock
I
star.
still wanted
Yeah.
to eat the breadsticks.
Yeah, I still like
Oh.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. But yeah, the moment I thought,
Where you realized.
realize this is what I want to do. It was before I started showing interest to my family, I believe. I was in school in music class, and at the time, I told you about this the other day actually, but at the time I was quite shy. Like one of those hide behind your mom things. And I think this was 3rd grade. And the music teacher wanted to find a soloist to sing Lady Gaga's Paparazzi. And so we're all standing on the bleachers like in a little choir. And so he's waiting for people to step forward. And I get pushed forward by a friend that, she's standing behind me. She can hear me sing. So she's like, go do it. And I was like, and then here I am standing in front. So everyone's like, do it. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll do it. And then so I sang the song and everyone's like, oh, she can sing. And I was like, oh, guess I can sing.
Yes, I can sing.
And then I got the part, and I think that's when I realized, oh, I guess this is something.
Yeah.
That's a great Lady Gaga
She
song,
can
by
fly,
the way.
she can fly.
It is,
Yeah, I love it.
is.
Yeah, you did a great cover of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I started playing it a few months ago and adding it to my my repertoire.
That's cool. A little come
Isn't
around
that-
there.
Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite cover that you like to play?
I really like playing Big Yellow Taxi.
Nice.
There's this little lick thing I do at the beginning. If you watch one of the videos in the series that we shot, that I don't know. When I play that, people seem to be like, "Oh, she can play guitar. All right,
Yeah,
that's
let's.
cool. She can
What
actually
song is
play.
this?" Because it doesn't sound like Big Yellow Taxi when I first play it. So I really like the twist of not knowing where it's going.
That's what Dave said to me after the recording. He was like, wow, she can play.
Did you hear the Joni
sweet.
Mitchell or the Counting Crows version first?
That's awesome.
I think County. What was that?
Like the original song sung by Joni Mitchell, and then
I don't
Counting
think-
Crows have the big
Counting
cover.
Crows.
Counting
yeah.
Crows. Yeah, I
Joni
think I heard the
Mitchell.
I
Counting Crows.
completely forgot about Counting Crows.
Yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
I don't think I've ever heard Joni Mitchell's version. Like, I've only heard a few seconds. I've never listened to the whole
Oh.
thing.
Because I got into an argument with Tyler about that because I thought the Counting Crows version was the original, and he put me in my
Yeah.
place because he was working somewhere at the time and was on his radio station there on
That's
like a
funny.
small loop, and I'm like, oh, that was a cover. I always love that when I hear a song, and then I realize, oh, that's actually a cover.
That
And
makes
you
us-
find the original, and you're like, oh.
That makes us 1 for 1 then. Because remember with Aerosmith, I was like, you know the song Dream On? He was like, that's Aerosmith. And I was like, that is not Aerosmith. That does not sound like Steven Tyler. And then I was willing to bet him money, which we didn't, thank heavens. And
I was going to go big because I knew I was right.
was like, wow.
Especially if
Anyways.
you hear "Walk This Way" and then somebody comes.
That's
at
what
you
I was
with
using.
that. Yeah,
My
you're not
first
gonna
CD
think.
as a kid, I got my first CD player. My mom got me Lion King and Permanent Vacation, Aerosmith.
That's quite the.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
Ragdoll, live in
Yeah.
the city, hot round, there's a little
That's
cutie.
wild. That's
Classic.
wild. That's crazy. So, when did you first kind of like when you? There's so many questions that I want to ask you because there's like it's so neat to just hear your story, and because you're so young and things have happened so. Would you say they've happened quickly, or would you feel like it's happened slowly for you?
I'd say they're happening quite quickly.
Yeah.
Every year, my family and I, we like to, look at what's happened and where we go from here. Every year we set goals. And we found that every goal that we set, we achieve it and maybe a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so every year is busier than the next. And so definitely in that sense, it's
Yeah.
growing
I think
very
it's going to keep
quickly.
getting busier and busier for you.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think I love hearing. First of all, I think that's absolutely phenomenal, and I love that you are doing that with your life and with your career. Who's the kind of is that you that spears that up, like setting the goals and kind of looking at the year and looking at the past and learning? And is that you, or is that a group, or is that your family when you say that?
It's definitely a group effort, but it's kind of like I lead the conversation and then other things get picked up and we're like, oh, wait, that's really good. And then so kind of when it all comes together, it's one bigger, better thing.
That's awesome. And did you come up with that on your own? Like, I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna write out like what I did and like write out some goals. And did you kind of, or was that something you did with your
Probably,
parents?
probably my parents.
Because that honestly that makes my heart so happy to hear that. Because I know that like I feel very blessed. Like when I met your dad, I was like, oh, like just he's a great guy. And
He is
instantly I was like, oh, my heart just like felt warm inside because I feel blessed that I had a family that was supportive as well. And I also had a father-in-law who was amazing in my career in coming alongside me and supporting me and kind of being the business manager that like we sat down and actually I told the guys like he was the first one to like sit us down as a band. I was like, okay guys, so we're going to discuss what success looks like to each one of us. And it was we had 4 guys in the band and there was 4 answers for what success looked
Yeah.
like.
All different.
It was
Yeah.
all, and it was interesting because I even told them I was like, at the time, I should have recognized that our 4 answers meant that we probably shouldn't have been in the same band together. But we learned, and he really held us and kept us on track with doing those things like setting goals and stuff. And I think that that's one thing that I'm always appreciative of him for because it's always awesome to look at what you've done, where you can grow, setting goals. And then especially too, one thing that he taught us was to set not just goals, like we would set weekly goals, like monthly goals, like 3 months. Like he was very into like setting attainable goals so that we could see success in incremental like moments
Yeah.
instead of always like being like, okay, by the end of this year we want this. And so I think that honestly makes me so happy because it's something to hear that you're half my age, that it's so cool to hear the next generation thinking this way. You're
Totally, yeah.
well ahead of where I was. And I think that for those that are like watching and that are going to hear this, I just really want them to understand how important that is because I can't praise you enough for doing that. I think that's absolutely phenomenal.
That's why I was saying, I was like, I think I played too much Final Fantasy VII in high school, I guess.
I mean, when you have a goal, right? How are you going to get there? You need a
Yeah.
game plan. So definitely it's the whole process. It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
It's true, but there's a lot of people that don't have support. And we're both blessed that we do, you do,
Definitely.
and we both have that support.
Super important for sure.
You also have the drive to do that. I had the same thing with me, like definitely had the drive, and I still have that drive, and that's a good thing. But there's a lot of people that will be inspired by your story and even hearing this, that like that's a tool. And so that's one thing that we were talking about earlier is that when you decided at 8 years old that, I really love music, and then when you decided as you got older, like actually this is what I want to do for my career, you instantly now became self-employed and you own a business. So people usually like, and that was one thing when we had our meetings when we first started the band, there was guys that just wanted to get paid in beer and, that was it. They were happy. And I was like, actually, I'd like to
Yeah, a little more than that.
I'd like to, be able to pay bills and to be able to write songs for even like other artists and to do this and to let my journey in music go in all these different ways. Which is why I was so excited when you're talking about 2,000 people requesting your song. And that's where I want to talk a little bit about your social media. So you're crushing it on social media. You're doing a fantastic job
Totally.
of sharing who
Thank
you
you.
are. You like I mentioned to you, you create absolutely phenomenal music, and we want to get to know you even more. And I think you do a great job of balancing that on social media. So how long have you been on? Like, so let's just say Instagram. We'll just use Instagram.
I think grade 7. So when I was
Freaking love that,
13.
man. That is just unbelievable to me.
Yeah. Coming up to 5 years.
That's awesome. So how's it been for you? Like, what are some of the things that you've noticed what do you love the most about it?
I just love being able to connect with people. Honestly, I mean, that's what the internet does. It gives you this
Totally.
whole platform to allow you to connect with these people across the world. So I love that, being able to connect with fans. And also, collaborations are easier than ever now.
Totally.
And so when I first started out, I started, posting some videos with the piano and the bad angles and the bad lighting and everything else that makes it go downhill. But somehow from that, people loved it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then
So I'm going to cut you off there.
Yeah.
I love those ones, by the way. I went to the bottom of your feed, and that's where I started, because that's
Okay.
where your story started. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, and it got better. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's all awesome. But I've often told the guys that I'm like, oh man, I just
Yeah.
feel like sitting with you, that it's much like when I'm going through social. 2 nights ago, I was kind of just like chilling on TikTok, and this like guy that I followed like went live, and there was only 50 of us. I'm like, wicked! Here, this is performance for 50 people. I'm one of the 50,
Right?
and I was so stoked. I was like, this is so cool, because in my mind I always think like, if this is the next John Lennon or the next Taylor
Yeah.
Swift or the next I
Totally.
feel honored that I get this intimate moment. So I feel honored that I get to go back on your story, on your feed, which to me, that's what social media channels are, is it's your story. I want to get a chance to not only see what you do, but most importantly, I want to get to know who you are. So going back down your feed to the dimly lit ones where you're like, oh, I love those, because those are the raw moments to me
That's
that I'm like,
awesome.
this is awesome.
Yeah, I love seeing where people came from as well. In my little cyber stalk sometimes, you like to scroll to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
I accidentally
yeah.
liked. That's way too far down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But that's one of the things too, though, that as you're talking, and I hope that people can understand, is that you've been on there. So like that's a long time that you've been on. You've created a good following. Like, is it quite an engaged audience? Like when you go live,
Seems like it.
so that's one of the things I want to talk about. Like when you go live, let's say, because I think you have let's say you have about 8,000 followers. Roughly, how many do you get like when you go live?
When I go live, there'll probably be a total of, well, depending which platform.
Yeah,
But-
we'll just stick with Instagram.
Probably-
Is that where you'd say that your most engaged audience is on, or is it TikTok? Or
For lives, it would be Facebook.
oh, cool. Okay.
For content, it'd be Instagram, but for shares of content, it'd be Facebook.
Okay.
Wow, eh?
That's
Yeah.
really cool. So what is it about Facebook you think that?
Well, Facebook, they make it really easy for you to, share something. And
Yeah.
Instagram, it's also easy to share something, but people are a lot more picky on what goes on there.
Yeah.
That's a
Because
good point.
there's my feed,
Oh,
there's no aesthetic. Like,
that's a
I
good
can't
point.
post your music. Why would I do that? Whereas Facebook, it's just a wall and you're not controlling what's...
That's true. That's
I
a
mean,
good
you are
point.
controlling, but,
Yep.
in that kind of sense.
Yeah. So what do you like? I've kind of used the analogy before that it's like I've told the guys that like I couldn't stand trying to get people out to shows. Like I always preferred to go tour everywhere else except for home. I can't stand begging people to come out. And that-
Oversaturate.
I just couldn't handle it. Like, and I still to this day, I was talking to somebody else about it. After we had that podcast, we were chatting. I was like, man, it just brought up all these feelings again that I had about like just begging people to come out. And I remember, because I'm just not that kind of a person. And then now I think like, man, like, I mean, I watched with my girls. I watched Miley Cyrus on TikTok live. I watched like Justin Bieber on TikTok live. It was phenomenal, and like the response is crazy. Then we also talked about like even like performances that people are doing in game now, and the amount of millions of people joining
in
in.
Fortnite
And yeah, that was Travis Scott, right? Like that was
and
Travis Scott.
Marshmallow.
Yeah. So when I look at all the engagement that people are getting, that's the reason why. Like I sorry if I put you on the spot with like numbers and stuff, but I wanted to show that it's like the effectiveness, like, when you're live, and let's say you've got 8,000 followers, and to me, like, that's why I also like threw in the word engaged, because it doesn't matter if you have, like, I work with clients that have tons of followers, but their engagement is next to none. Or if I go in and actually look at their insights, it's like, why is 33% of your people that say follow you from some country I can't even pronounce? It's because
Yeah.
you paid for it. So it looks like you've got this. So
Yeah.
that's why, to me, I've always, and this is one thing that we did with our band as well, is that we really focused on having, let's set a goal for 100 truly engaged fans. And then once we get that, let's go for 150 and then 200. So going back to like begging people to come out to shows, like when you go live and you're playing and you're in control of it all, and all of a sudden you have 100 people. When's the last time you played a show for like 100 really engaged people that weren't hammered,
Right?
right? That were actually like really excited to see you, and they will. As much as there isn't that same level, say, on Instagram, where you're right, they can share it to their feed because of the aesthetic and stuff, but they will talk about you. And that's one of the cool things. So that's why I love hearing you and like talk about that, is because I think that's something that people kind of discredit a bit, or they don't realize, is like how hard we would work to get 100 people out, and you can sit in your room and play something and a new idea, and it's okay if you screw up and you can talk. And that's one of the things that I absolutely love, is then the engagement, to being able to talk back and forth when there's a live. That's something to me that I'm like, oh, it's a game changer.
It's an interesting feeling too, going live with like all like random people and being able to reach that far. Like even when I was testing the interface for your live stream there, and I just had a record player plugged in, I was like, okay, I went live and just putting on like Queen and like listening party, right? And then as soon as I saw a couple people go in, I was kind of like, oh, I gotta talk about tuning in here with Tyler on the
And we're back.
and we're back listening to Queen. Thanks for
This is,
tuning in.
Tyler spinning the hits here on
Hello.
Lonely Radio.
Welcome to the
Station.
stream, all four of you. Oh, one of you. Oh, that's me.
Oh, I lost
But
everybody.
it's something that I look at. Like, I loved watching. Like, there were some clips of you that I saw of you with a full band on stage, which was awesome. And then clips of you on your own playing on other locations. Clips of you at home. I love it, because I love that there's now a tool and an avenue for you to be able to strengthen that community.
Yeah.
Which is what gets me excited about the fact that 2,000 people across the world requested in one day. And
cool.
I would be targeting that area like mental. In fact, that's why for us, even when people have asked us, like, what was it that motivated us to go tour Japan, it was that we followed the music. And I was always about that, the analytics of following where people are, because it didn't make sense in my mind. And luckily we had bandmates that agreed, but it didn't make sense to beg people to come to shows when we could just spend a bit of time engaging and connecting with the real community and going to them then.
Right.
And that's one thing that I was going to ask, is like, so you're just crushing it when it comes to doing the live stuff. So do you miss in-person live
Oh,
shows?
yeah.
And when was the last live show you did? Last in-person, like with a...
You do that tour not that long ago too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's sooner than I thought.
Yeah?
So do I miss live shows? Yes, of course. I mean, oh my goodness. Let's just have a bunch of vocal fries and okay. So now I can talk again. Yes, I miss in-person live performances. Online performances are definitely a lot of fun, and it's been a good learning curve, upgrading gear and putting certain things together to make it all sound better. And also being able to connect with people that you wouldn't necessarily be able to hear. But live shows, there's definitely an energy. And yes, you get to meet people online, but you don't get to meet people online, you know? And
It's, yeah.
yeah. And so thank you for reminding me, because my last live performance was actually just in October. So not too bad, but, you know, before it was multiple times a day. So very different. But yeah, I went on tour in October. I wasn't sure how it's going to work because it was during COVID. And especially me, I am very careful about it because I have some high-risk people at home. So going on this tour, I was, you know, I wanted to keep the mask on the whole time and not touch people or anything like that. And so we were able to go on this COVID tour, following all the regulations and still staying safe. So I was very impressed with that and was still able to meet people in person and make those connections. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it looked like a fun tour too.
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I started in Edmonton, ended back in Vancouver, and kind of, you know, hit all the stops going back, and then also did kind of like a little horseshoe shape around the Toronto area. But yeah.
Had you been there before, or was this like your first time going to these places on tour?
I had played, wait, let me see. I think a few of the spots, the cities I played in before, but all the venues were new.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I think I just maybe discovered you a little bit before that. Is when I first started following, and then I saw that tour, and I was like, oh, this is. So you're getting a lot of places.
Yeah. New place every night. I
Yeah.
loved it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's just a great feeling. That's what I miss that so much, playing on stage and just like, especially if you like when people like when you're able to surprise people. Like that's my favorite when you're there,
Yeah.
kind of looking at you like, oh, who's this person, and then like, oh, okay.
That's cool. Do you miss well, actually, there's a couple things there because I think like some of the stuff that you're doing is what makes those live shows so successful. So, I actually am a huge believer in like that same engagement of being online. That real like those real connections are what ends up strengthening your brand, strengthening who you are, and that engagement. Because there's people like I know for myself, like I fell in love with artists that were across the other side of the world, like Radiohead. Man, fell in love with them, found out whatever I could about those guys, like whether it be gear or stories or what pubs they were playing at in England, all that stuff, because I wanted so, and I never even, they hadn't even crossed the waters. I never saw them, like, till like years later I got to see them perform and stuff, and that's how I equate like what you're doing with the live, which is why I think it's fantastic, is that you're not just doing one thing. Is that the reason why other avenues will be successful, like tours, is because you're putting in the work, and that's one of the things that I've actually really wished for a lot of musicians is, I've spoken to other musicians who throughout COVID were just like, well, I guess there's nothing to do. I'm like, actually, now's the greatest time you could be out there. Like, you can be out there connecting with people around the world every single day, strengthening your community.
Totally.
And you'll watch the more that you engage in more ways than just songs. And that's the thing, is that's why, like, when we were talking earlier, and again, I can't emphasize enough, is sharing more of who you are is what's going to engage with people, because they're gonna want to be a fan for life. And for you have a great career ahead of you. So
Totally.
that's one of the cool things, is like the live is what's going to get you used to, situations where, I remember times where I was playing and I couldn't even see the audience. Like it legit, and that's like a lot of the shows where it doesn't like, and the majority of the time for me, myself, I'd actually close my eyes anyways.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be back in my living room. So, but I think that's one of the cool things, is it helps to like hone your skills, also how to engage and talk. It allows you, like, for me, I know that when we do certain intimate things like this, it actually made me a little bit more comfortable, and to even just realize it's okay to, part of the experience is talking from the stage. It's not just about song. It's about the moments in between and the intimate moments, and those are things that you learn as you not only tour, but as you play like shows. And so I actually like really wish we would have done way more live stuff on to strengthen our community. So that I've got a lot to learn from you, because I think that you do it so effortlessly and you don't even think twice about it. Like, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, is like, so when you're doing things like, okay, I'm going to throw this up there, like, are you just like, yeah, let's do it, let's go for it, or do you do what I do, which is overthink it about a million times and then miss out? And
I'd wager a guess
And
probably
have
just
it-
throws
yeah.
it up there.
Well, I definitely overthink a lot of the posts. Not too much, I don't think, though. But I do plan out my things. I'll be like, oh, this is a really cool idea. Or I'll be like, oh, I want to do something like this one day. Or I just get an idea, and then kind of I walk into the situation because I love going with the flow. I love problem solving, so anything new that comes up, I just go through my list of ideas in my head and kind of be like, oh, this one's going to suit the situation. And then you kind of make it come to life. So I really like doing that and putting it out there. I totally forgot the question.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
The other great thing is like how much content you're putting out there. Like you've always got something coming up, so it's like there's old videos people can look through, but there's always something new. And what I really like the videos where you show like you making beats, right? Like I start with this, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
throw in
that's
some
one of my
hi-hats.
faves.
Like that stuff's awesome, and showing more people like how to create on the DAW. You know what I mean? Like there's it's so accessible to people, but it can be the more people know about it, right? Like 'cause it's not as hard as it seems once you get into it, and there's so much you could do, and especially for people who aren't, say, like honed their skills as much as you have, it doesn't matter when they're on their DAW, because they get the time to just, okay, I'll lay down one track then, oh, I'll get that right, and now I can play along to that and layer onto that, right? And so I know when I was starting and learning it helped me build songs without being like as good as I wanted to be, or without having bandmates around too, right?
Yeah, let's like, that's actually something that's cool. Like one of the posts that I loved, and is that one post where you, some people I guess had sent you words, and they wanted you to write a song using those words, or you had talked about that. Can you kind of like lead us through? If you guys got to go to her like Instagram, it's on Instagram, I believe, correct?
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. It's really great, and I love that you show that because number one, you make it look effortless, which is awesome. But explain to us. So, what program are you using right there to do that? You were using.
Yeah. I work through Logic Pro.
Okay.
And well, I wanted to do a video that would, bring up some engagement. And so my questionnaires on my story do very well. So I just threw up one of those. Hey, give me a random word. I gave no context at all because, then the more fun words come out of
Yeah,
it.
totally.
Yeah.
And then so once I had a good list going, I kind of just closed my eyes, pick one, close my eyes, pick another one, close my eyes, pick another one. My words were hey, puddin', and pie. And then so, you gotta make the people feel special. So I put their little images up of their comment.
Oh, awesome.
And then I just made a quick little track, just layered some stuff, and then, singled them out for the video. And then
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off there.
yeah.
So when you say like you make it sound so effortless, I love that. That's my favorite thing. So I just just went through that in there. And of course, you gotta like make them feel good. So I decided to like throw that in there. So
Screenshot,
where
put it
did
up,
you-
layer
so
the video. Just
is that something that you did because you like that, or is that something that somebody taught you, like to take? Because I think that's phenomenal. That because you even brought them into now,
Yeah.
so they're with you in this.
Yeah, did that make
So
you feel
Did you
good?
just choose to do that, or did somebody teach you that?
I don't know, I just did it.
Okay, I love it. So now the next thing, let's move on to the next little. And then I just did like blah 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 blah.
Okay.
How long did you? So then you started. You've got some tracks in there and you threw them down. Roughly, how long do you think that you spent doing that?
Like 15 minutes.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're at the next stage. So this is why I love that post so much because, like, this is the story behind it that I love. Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. Because it
Such a
made
good
me want
idea.
to put in a word, and then it sounded phenomenal when you put it through. So there's a lot of people that I think sometimes, like we've talked about, like that it can seem daunting to record,
Yeah.
and they don't know what to use. I even know sometimes I'll throw through like I've done stuff where I've sung into this microphone because I'm like I need something around,
Yeah.
and I'm not afraid. I don't care. Like if it works, it works. And I think that like, so for you using Logic, like how long would you say like it took you to kind of get familiar with it so you could just be flawless like this and just throw things together?
Honestly, I think it just took a couple of months, maybe. Well, I had Logic for, I don't know, maybe a year now. I'm not sure. It hasn't been that long. But then I spent, when I first got it, I just spent the whole day playing on it, so I knew where everything was.
Love
And
it.
then kind of from there, it's just, making your tracks and then as
Yeah.
complicated of beats you want. And,
Yeah.
over time it gets more complicated, or you learn, oh, space is actually better. And then,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, add a bunch of stuff, right? And then start taking away ingredients. You're like, oh, I don't need that. I don't need that.
That's a
Yeah.
gift. That's a gift. That's so hard to learn. It's funny
Yeah.
because like I remember just thinking like we need more.
Yeah,
And
especially
then it'd
so
be
much
like we get
more.
it back and it was like you need to take everything out. Like
yeah, that's like
there's
if you
no
hear me
space for
drum.
anything.
It's like, oh,
Yeah,
just gotta
stop
add
drumming
more.
so
No,
much.
There's too much drumming.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Honestly, stops are my favorite. Like
Yeah.
a really good pause, you're like, oh, like,
That's
It's
that
drama.
hip-hop.
There's
Yeah.
so much
Hits, it's
drama in a
good.
song. If there's a pause, everyone's like, takes that breath, and then it comes back.
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
I remember that, like, when you listen to, like, just a good hip-hop song and that beat's going, all of a sudden it just drops. You're like, oh, I can't wait for it to come back. And you just, that anticipation, like, oh, my goodness, I love that.
Or if
It's
they
funny.
wait like an extra beat too long too, like they give it the extra, you're like, oh.
Yeah, it's even more fun when you're doing it live.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that. Yeah.
Don't sound like that.
When your group's really rehearsed well and everyone knows we're just gonna do this by feel and like actions, those are really fun to do.
Yeah, I think my number one fan would be new drummers. So if my drummer can't make it, I have another drummer come in. I'd like to think I'm quite good with hand signals. Like I got the whole thing down. I'm like, okay, if you're confused, just look at my hand. I'll guide you through the whole song. It's fine.
That's awesome.
But just for kicks, I like throwing in a bunch of stops. One of the
That's funny.
songs I have is called Crescent Beach. And in one of them, I have probably like 10 stops in the whole song. And then it's just so funny because I like turning around sometimes to look at the drummer and they're like,
What are you doing?
Torture.
so,
You're torturing the poor guy.
Cannot
Definitely.
compute.
No, man, he's got to work for it. He's got to stay alert.
Yeah.
Well, you
exactly,
know-
on his toes.
You guys know how to tell if the stage is on level, right?
Oh, no.
Drool only
How?
comes out of one side of the drummer's
Oh
mouth.
my gosh. Those poor drummers, they
gonna-
take it all.
We're going to have to
Drumming-
cut that part out.
Drum's my favorite.
Tyler's a drummer, so that was
I
himself.
actually love
Oh
drumming.
yeah, suck
I
up
love
now.
drummers,
Yeah, drums
he's
are my
trying
favorite.
he's trying to backtrack. We can feel that backtrack. But I was gonna say, like, that was one of the cool things for me was going, like, and taking a look at all the different things that you've done, and like, I was like, she plays with a band. That's so cool. So, what do you prefer? Do you prefer like, or I guess there's a place for both, but what kind of drew you to a band, to playing with a band?
Well, it was kind of a progression, like little stepping stones in performance. So before I started playing open mics, and then just getting a feel for it. So that started with backing tracks and a microphone.
Yeah.
And then when I picked up an instrument, then it was me and the instrument. And then I was like, oh, a duo would sound really cool. So I started playing with this guitarist, Tony Dell, so talented. It's like the guitar is a part of him. It's crazy. And then from there, it was like, oh, well, these venues are getting bigger and we need a band now. So it's like, okay, let's get a band. And then so now I go all the way up to a 5-piece, and we do tons of variations, whatever people want, whatever space there is, whatever kind of set we're doing, and we just kind of and put the set together.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it.
Okay, out of nowhere, if there was one artist you can meet to ask like questions about singing, who's the one you'd want to either play a show with or just be able to meet?
Anderson .Paak.
Oh,
I've never
great
even
answer.
I've never even heard of that.
Oh,
person.
Tyler, you sweet.
Well, maybe I've heard that person, but I've never heard
I
of him.
love him.
You
He's
sweet
so
summer
good.
child, Tyler. Oh no. But that's
Oh, you sweet
You know
summer
what?
child.
The fact that you've never heard not realized who he is, I almost envy. Like, when people are like, oh, I haven't seen that. You're
Yeah.
like, that's so good. Like, I haven't heard that album.
You are
That's so
lucky.
good. You're lucky. You've got so
You
much
get
to listen
see
to.
Spirited Away.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you get a chance to listen to his music, which you should,
Anderson .Paak.
Yeah,
he's so talented.
When
He's
we're done, where I'm pulling it up, Tyler,
Yeah.
we're doing it. It's gonna happen. Like,
It's a pact.
ASAP.
I'm not even gonna admit that I don't know who he is. So
Yeah.
both of you?
no,
So
no.
good.
idea.
Oh no, Ashley, who are these people?
I was like
Uncultured,
sitting here
that's what they
seriously
are.
thinking the whole time, like, I'm just gonna pretend.
It's like one of those
and
moments.
move on.
That was like when I actually stopped her one of her songs. She was just like, "Oh, my guitar's way out of tune," and then she started again. I was just like, "Oh shit! It didn't sound. I thought it sounded good. Is there something wrong with me?"
You're like, yeah, it was. It
Oh,
was.
yeah,
I didn't
totally
want to say
was,
anything,
yeah.
but it was.
I wasn't
I'm
gonna
glad
say
you
it.
guys didn't do that thing where people just lie, like, "Oh, I do know that." I'm like, "What's your favorite song?" And you're like, "All of them."
I love that
Like,
with movies.
Oh yeah, I just like it all. I couldn't pick one.
I had a cousin like that, like every movie. Yeah, I've seen it. Oh yeah, what happened? Nothing. I don't remember.
Awkward silences all around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
And
that
then you
is a-
announce it. Oh, poor Tyler.
Yeah.
Oh my God. On stage, I wanted to ask if there's like a moment that you can think of that was either one of the most oddest, strangest, or weirdest moments that you've ever had on stage.
Things that make you go,
Good or
I
bad.
don't know.
Do you ever have moments like what got me thinking about that was that I remember being on stage and I like entering that kind of flow state where everything was happening in slow motion, and it was just so all the shows always were really odd for me because it was always like in slow motion, and I remember like picking people out of the crowd, being like, and actually thinking in my head like, actually, okay, I'll share one story with you. So things were happening in slow motion. I was like looking around and I was like, oh my goodness, that's a guy I think that I went to high school with, and I was like, and I think I bullied him.
Oh
Like,
no.
I think I was like a total asshole to him. And it was at the very beginning of the show. And I remember just being like, oh, like genuinely like gutted. Like so much so I was like, I can't even look at him. Like
Okay.
he's like, oh, I can't look, like, oh my goodness. And I just kept looking. He's so into the show. And I was like, oh man. And I remember just, it could not finish quick enough. Like
Yeah.
I had to finish the show. And I remember like, it was a phenomenal show. Everything went really, really well. I ran off the stage. I wasn't even sure if this was 100% the guy because I didn't spend much time with people in my high school. I was always doing other things away from high school, but I was like, I swore this was the guy. And then, even then it wasn't. I remember that I didn't beat him up. I remember it was more that I just was like trying to posture up. So kind of like just being a bit of a jerk kind of a thing, right? But it's still, it just gutted me because I knew like, that's just not who I am. And I just felt so terrible. So anyways, after I beelined for him through the crowd, like literally threw my guitar down, beeline, I was like, I have to talk to you. And he's like, that's such a great show, blah, blah. Do you remember me? We went to school. I was like, it is the guy. And I remember saying like, I said like, I am so sorry for like just the asshole that I was. Like it guts me. It hit me from the moment I saw it. I just want to apologize. And he looks at me and I'm literally like holding him, like begging for forgiveness. I'm so sorry, like begging. He's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, what? And he goes, what are you talking about? Like as if it like never happened, and I wasn't sure if I made it all up in my head, but I remember that being a moment that I like will never forget because it was just the oddest thing that we're in this like sold out show. It's huge.
And you
And
can't focus on anything
But I just was
that.
so like focused on this one, and I've had other moments too where there's things like that go on that are just, it's not what I would have ever expected to ever think about while performing on a stage that I dreamt about as a kid, and like this stuff happening, and like, you know, it's crazy giant screens and lights and everyone, you're doing this whole show and this, and I'm focused on the fact that like, but it's so odd. So that's why I share that story, is because like there's when I've shared it with other people, they'll share like odd things that they've thought of as well, where they're like, yeah, I've been on stage and just like
Yeah.
weird thoughts of like, or
I've got one. When we played at, it used to be Liquid or China Beach or Citrus, and we used to like to throw candy out to people because it just got everyone riled up, like Halloween candy. Josh threw out some CDs.
That was
like,
at the Blarney Stone.
Okay, was that what it was?
Oh, I remember because
He throws out the CD, like frisbees it, and just like nails somebody. And I remember just like being like, "Oh,
that was
we
bad.
can get sued."
That was a mistake. He was not happy to get a free CD. I tell you that.
No. Here, have a candy. He hits him again in the eye.
Yeah, I'll take this candy. That'll fix it.
Yeah,
He
just
really
like-
felt the music that day.
He
Oh,
did. He
yeah.
felt
He really
it
did
right
feel
in the
it.
temple.
It cut him deep.
He's not
It
a
was
fan.
deep cut.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm not a big guy. You can't, you know, like I'm not gonna fight anybody. He was mad. It was
I mean,
upsetting.
you were at fault. You threw the CD.
It was
so why would
completely
you
my
fight
fault.
him?
I felt not great about it. That was the moment when, like, you know, stage lights are always kind of hot, but
Yeah.
like, no, I felt like, oh no, I'm burning up, hot, embarrassed, and then all the lights are on you, and yeah, I didn't
All
do that
eyes on
anymore.
me.
It was a one-time thing.
Yeah, I think that's for the best.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yes.
it was.
Have you had any strange moments?
I can't remember any right now. I know I love to people watch.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of predict what they're gonna do, or I'm like, you know what? They look like they want a guitar solo like in this long. Or I'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna sing this verse to them because I don't know, I just feel like this line's them. And then I sing to them, they're like, yeah, and they nod, and they're just
I
like,
love that.
they're like, dang.
Do you spend
You know?
time making eye contact too, like making sure you connect that
No,
way?
you look at the forehead.
Forehead. There you
Yeah.
go.
Unless you're trying to be very special and you're like, you know what? I see you.
Yeah.
But usually it's just
looked right,
forehead.
she looked right through me there.
Been foreheads this whole time, hasn't it?
Yeah,
My
yeah.
soul.
No, she gave it away. I'm like, she hasn't been looking at me this time.
I've been looking at you guys. Okay, you're like right here. How can I not? But yeah, I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. But I'm sure, you know,
Now you're
I'll
gonna
be
be
sleeping
fixed.
and
Now
I wake
when
up and
you're-
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Now when you're performing, she's gonna be like studying the crowd.
Yeah.
like
looking
something
around.
weird happened, so I can talk about it next
Yeah,
time.
come on.
Is that Matt? What's he doing here?
I will.
He's
I'll be in
just
the
throwing
back
stuff
just
at you.
crying, throwing candy and CDs at her. She's like,
Yeah.
what is this thing? It's a CD.
One of the craziest things, like speaking of throwing stuff up on stage, I was at Edgefest '97, and Philosopher Kings, remember them? Danko Jones is their singer.
I remember Danko Jones.
Danko Jones. So he was a singer of Philosopher Kings, and they were kind of like the early band. A lot of people didn't really, it didn't sound like they liked them because they're all like booing and throwing garbage.
Really?
Yeah, they're being total dicks. But then Danko Jones caught a water bottle out of the air that was gonna hit him, and then the crowd erupted and they loved him. It like it went from the
He
booing,
performed a feat of
he
strength.
caught the garbage, the people rejoiced.
That's all they wanted for
That
the
was all they
start.
want.
They're like, just
Can
catch
he,
it.
He can sing, but can he catch?
It's funny that they're just like, you know, not into the music, but he catches.
Yeah.
And now he's great.
It's pretty iconic.
Danko Jones, that guy can catch. Seriously.
They're like,
What a
so how
catch.
was the show? It's like, he's got a great arm.
He's got a great arm.
He's got a great arm on
Great
him.
grip
How's
on
the
that
music?
guy.
I'm not too sure, actually. I wasn't
But he
paying
caught a
attention.
water bottle.
He never
Oh,
gave my
water
water bottle back.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that one person doesn't like him.
Yeah,
He kept my water bottle.
That was my family water bottle. It's been in for generations.
Oh my goodness, that's
Bastard.
awesome.
That bastard.
Did I ask you already? But my daughter wanted me to ask you what your favorite song to play is of yours.
Of mine.
Yeah.
I'd say right now it is Mama Knows Best. I haven't played it live yet. We did record it here
Yeah.
as well.
That's awesome.
It's just, I don't know. When I play the song, I just really get into it, and it's just, I can't explain the feeling, but there's a feeling, and I love it.
So that must be like a relatively new song then?
Yeah, but don't worry, I'm not. Yes, I do suffer from most
The
recent
newest
song's
is
the
the
best,
best,
song.
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But this one's 5 songs old now, so I'd like to say maybe
it
it's up
must
there.
actually be.
It's
Yeah.
5 songs.
It
old.
must
I
be
love
okay.
that.
It's great.
It just turned 5.
It's great.
Yeah.
So
It's
new.
in song kindergarten. I'm
That's
so
Exactly.
proud of it.
You know, it might graduate. I don't really know, but
It was pretty awesome, like getting to listen to your original songs, like coming from someone who like discovered you on Facebook and Instagram, and then watching your lives and be like, oh, she's really good, and then just watch you for months, and then reaching out to you, and then I was like filming. I'm like, I get my own personal show here.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually, and again, going back to like, you know, not trying to flag the whole live thing, but one thing that I've absolutely loved is that I feel so fortunate and blessed when I get a chance to have artists that go and perform and then give me the chance to actually even say like, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like,
And especially when they like, comment back, or because that's big. Like if you like, even liking stuff is kind of like, oh, like even if
Maybe
I tag
notice.
Steinway, and if they like one of the things I tagged, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
oh, Steinway saw me.
Well, I just think it's such a cool way, like an engaging way to, I think a lot of like artists and stuff like that, like I really hope they're hearing and they're seeing what you're doing and they're taking it as an inspiration for, like you've already mentioned so many incredible things that you're doing. And you're not waiting for like success, like you're going after it. Actually, one of the questions I wanted to have, or like to ask you is, what success would look like for you if you could look ahead, you know, to and you know
5 years.
Let's look ahead. Yeah, even like let's look ahead 5 years. What would it look like for you?
Well, one of my goals is to play the Rose Bowl and have it, you know,
That's
packed
awesome.
and all lit up with the cell phones and stuff. So I'd like to say, you know, I'd say sky's the limit, but I don't think that'd hold me back either.
That's awesome.
No way.
Yeah.
I love it. And
Yeah,
you're
if-
planning for it, so
yeah,
that's
if
the
you
great
keep-
thing. So it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
If you keep doing
just
what
go.
you're doing, it's only a matter of time, for sure.
Well,
That's
I'd like to
awesome.
hope so.
The New Zealand show will happen soon.
Yeah, New Zealand's coming.
Yeah, I
Well,
definitely.
they just went through a few earthquakes.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
there's
did they?
Corona. Yeah.
Well,
They had
relatively soon, within like the next 5 years. That's what I'm
Isn't,
seeing.
Oh yeah, I guess.
Bad. I'm really bad with time. Everyone's like, oh, like yeah, this happened the other day. Like when was that? I'm like, oh, I guess that was 7 years ago. I'm sorry. My
What's
sense
the
of
prime
time is a
minister's
little
name? She's awesome.
off.
I can't remember her name. I know who you're talking
Cool.
about. but I
Yeah,
can't
super
remember her
cool.
Yeah,
And
I
didn't
know
they-
that too.
And didn't they kick? I thought they were like really low numbers and like really kicking butt.
They
over
were.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
I
think
can't speak about it because I don't know enough
Jacinda.
about it. But
I don't know. She was on Joe Rogan, I think, wasn't she? Anyways, that was really important.
I want to. One thing that's interesting is that like growing up, you must have written like I love that you were talking about like those 8-year-old songs because I know for me like I was writing. My dad had like a guitar in his closet that I found and. That's what I started with just by ear, was writing like that. And I started with even just bass lines because I didn't know what the chords were when I was starting and just writing melodies. I've always been about writing melodies. That's the first thing I hear, the first thing I write, constantly singing. And still to this day, I'm always under my breath, constantly singing, writing melodies. And I loved that. And I loved sneaking away into my room and writing all day into the night. And I know when I moved out, my dad, said one of the things, and I didn't even think about it, but he said one of the most difficult things for him when I moved out was that he used to fall asleep with me singing.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, I never thought about that because it's just something you don't think of
Yeah.
when you're at home. And now I have 2 girls and I'm like I could cry thinking about them because I'm like, don't leave.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
And just all those
Oh.
fun songs and the things that you did and the support that you had from home. And I remember though, as my career grew, like yours is doing really well, family loves you no matter what. And I remember always, we've talked about this, that anything I did, family was always like, oh, it's amazing. You're so amazing. How was that show? It was unbelievable. The best you've ever done. It's like,
Changed my life.
okay. And I remember like early on that I called them kind of the shit kickers, but I sort of meant like the truth tellers, the ones that you could go to that were, and it's interesting because when I talked to other musicians, a lot of them didn't have that. They would really surround themselves with people that just blew smoke up their asses. And so everything was phenomenal. But you're very grounded. And that's one thing that I was wondering in your life, who your truth tellers are.
Definitely my family.
See, that's
Well,
awesome.
my parents, to be more
That's
specific.
awesome.
Yeah, well, they give constructive feedback. Sometimes I don't want it.
Can you
But-
give us an
Right?
example of some constructive feedback that you've received that you didn't like, but you took it?
That I didn't like?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
She's
kind
not
of...
good. She's like, no,
No.
it's all good. It's all
No,
good.
but like I just kind of take it, work it, and then
Yeah.
if it can be reworked, then I rework it, and then I kind of just... Because now it's
Yeah.
gone
Well, do
and
you
dealt
find,
with.
like, I know I find too, if I get a criticism, like, there's part of me that's like hey, what are you talking about? But then, like, if you let it go, you're like, oh, okay, it's not so bad.
I remember one.
Yeah.
This wasn't from my family, though.
Of
Before...
course not. They're perfect.
Yeah.
They are, okay?
Especially John.
Yeah.
Leave this alone.
She's looking through my hair right
Touchy-
now.
What? Oh my god. I am never telling anyone that kind of thing ever again. Okay, but now I'm not looking at you at all.
Yeah. Could you please tell Matt that. I am mad at him.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, she's mad at you right now.
I know.
Mad at you.
Okay, but before my signature or my shtick was to wear a fedora or any kind of hat. And then somebody came up to me. I forgot who it was, but it was someone that I saw as a mentor, and they're like, "You lose the hat." I'm like, "What? You know how many years I've been wearing this thing on my head, and now it's like
It's my
Ashley Pear's
look.
known. Yeah, this is my look. I'm known for the hat, right?" And then so I kind of, I was talking to my parents. I was like, well, why would they even say that? Like, they've known this and that kind of thing. So that kind of got me a little mad. And I was like, okay, well, and then I kind of like stepped back and looked at it. I was like, okay, well, I'm known for the hat. I was like, well, I don't want to be known for the hat. I want to be known for me, right? Because before I was talking to my parents, I was like, well, should I lose the hat? You can find me in the crowd. They're like, oh, that's the girl, that's the hat. Let's go to her, take a picture, right?
Yeah.
But I rather them look for my face. Oh, that's the girl. That's her face. Let's go take a
The
picture.
voice under the hat.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that was one of the best criticisms I've
That actually
received.
helped.
Yeah.
Have you always been open to, like, yeah,
Racism?
almost like there's a level of humility. Like, I know for myself that it was, it's hard because even like those times when it stung, when I would hear things like, oh, that hurt because I really invested a lot into that and I felt like it was awesome, and it was good to hear. But at the same time, I was like,
You
like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of, but you handled even that situation, like, because it is something you're like, oh no, I've invested time in this, and I think this is what, I'm trying to create like a look or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But have
It's
you always
wise.
been pretty laid back when it, like, is that just kind of like your personality, like is to be kind of chilled and relaxed about that stuff?
Yeah. I'm definitely chill. Go with the
Yeah.
flow. I will listen to any criticism I receive, and I'm not gonna get offended by it. I will consider it though. It doesn't matter who says it, how high or mighty or not they may be. I will take it into consideration and see if it applies. If it does apply, then I'll see how it will fit in or how it'll change it. And then, it just makes you...
So
better.
have you implemented that then too? Like you mentioned being able to collaborate and stuff. Have you had a chance to collaborate with other artists as well then?
Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of collaborations recently. I don't know why I said that weird.
You did that Zoom collab.
Collab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it would be very like, just because having that kind of a person to collaborate with would be a dream. Because
Yeah.
most of the time it isn't like that in my experience. And I mean, I've had a chance to work with lots of artists, and it was always like battling for and we even said that, where it's like, even for myself, like it was like really being open to other people's ideas. And you'd be like, oh, go ahead. Like, Ashley, you can go ahead and share your... That's a great idea. It's great. Are you done? Because we're going to get to my idea. 'Cause
Yeah.
mine's better anyway. And so it looked like I was being really like, thoughtful and like really open to people. And I realized like, man, I closed a lot of doors for
Right.
myself with like, especially in those areas of not even exploring, like really deeply listening while somebody was coming across. That's why I think your years...
Yeah.
Like, man, you're just crushing it when it comes to that stuff. Like, I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's like a mix. Like, well, I'd say you're lucky, but you worked hard for it. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a mix of like great family, like the right environment, the natural talent, and the drive to do it. Right. So it's a good mix recipe
Yeah,
for success.
it is. What's if I was to ask you what's something we don't like that nobody knows about you?
My right shoulder makes a really weird sound.
Oh, the right
I
one.
think it's a problem. I should
Why?
check it out.
Let's set up the mics, guys. We'll go.
Okay, yeah.
We'll
Didn't
get
expect
a really
that.
high
You can
quality
probably hear
recording.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone's listening and they can like diagnose my shoulder, as long as it's not like cancer or something.
Put it up to the mic. Let's hear it. Let's hear the
okay,
shoulder.
ready?
Yeah.
Can you hear it?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
that
I
one,
can hear
yeah.
that.
That doesn't sound good.
Wow,
We're
that's
cutting
a-
that out for sure. That's disgusting.
That's a good one. That's gotta be. That's
You're
a
gonna
deep cut.
lose subscribers now. I'm so sorry.
No, we're gonna sample that into a song.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Ooh,
it's gonna be.
I
It's
think
gonna be in a
that'd
new
be
Billie
kinda dope.
Eilish song.
I can hear it. I can hear it.
It would
I'm
be
gonna
like-
use it now.
Yeah,
Just
replace
watch.
like that. What's that instrument?
So what did you do to get that?
I don't know. I was
It's
just
just
like
always done?
born. Yeah.
It's your gift.
Yeah. Right?
That's unbelievable. Yeah, that
Well,
would throw me for a loop.
I mean,
I
she's
think
got
I
an
know.
awesome voice, but have you heard her shoulder?
Yeah. Have you checked out that shoulder?
I don't want to be the girl in the hat. I
That
want to
shit's
be the girl
cracking.
on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, going back to like, I noticed, was it on TikTok? You walked out onto a stage. I think it was in Toronto. Was it Instagram or was
Oh.
it TikTok? I can't remember which one that was on.
I don't know either, but I think I know what you're talking about.
It was. I think it's. I don't know if it was recent or not, but it was a really cool stage, and I wasn't sure where that was. Do you remember where that was?
It was in Toronto.
Yes, it was in
I don't
Toronto.
remember which theater, but I don't know. I just remember when I walked in there and I was like, oh wow.
Okay, that's the answer. That's what I was looking for,
Yeah.
because it gave me that feeling too. I was like that walking in. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I wanted to ask you just like kind of that feeling of what you felt when you walked into that.
Yeah, like even seeing the backstage doors, so they kind of call me up, and then I go to the backstage, and then even they were impressive. I was like, oh,
That's
these
awesome.
these are doors. Wow, all right.
I've seen
And
some
then-
doors in my day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I walk back there, and they're like, oh yeah, coming up, because they were like for the rehearsal, and then I go out and I see all the seats, and I was like, dang, this is nice. Like I was like, all right, yeah, I would, wow.
Yeah. And were you
Just
solo
looked
there, or were
amazing.
you?
Yeah, I was just solo there.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
How was that open or playing before Our Lady Peace Canada Day there?
Ooh, that was really
That
cool.
must have been pretty cool.
That
Was that in Cloverdale?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That was my. Wait, what was I saying? Oh yeah, that was my first time playing for Surrey's Canada Day, and I was so blessed and so thankful because they put me on main stage.
So
and I was
cool.
like, that's crazy. Why are you putting me on main stage? But thank you.
Thank you.
Like
Yeah.
not that I'm thinking I'm not worth main stage, not that I'm saying I am worth, like all that kind of stuff that people get offended by or not. But it's just I had never played for them before, and they stuck me up there.
Wow.
And so what's kind of cool is I'm friends with the lady now, but she did sound for a few of the shows that I did apparently.
Oh,
And
so
but
that's cool.
I never got to meet the sound person because it was at like a fashion show, and then I get dragged on stage kind of thing. Not
Okay.
dragged. Love performing. Got put on
It's
stage.
just a thing they do at fashion shows.
And then
it's
so
very cool.
she noticed that I was popping up at places that she was at, and then so she ended up booking me for the actual show, and I got to meet her. I was actually on stage with her for a little bit as well, which I didn't realize until
That's cool.
I formally met her.
That's
Was
kinda
she
cool.
also like a musician type, or like where do you know much about like how she got into doing that?
She just started being not just started. I think through the sound side of things. She would mix shows,
Cool.
and then she kind of got into the booking of acts and stuff like that.
That's very cool.
That's an awesome person to kind of meet. Just like you just kept at it, and you were just going
Yeah.
out there, and you didn't even realize there was someone
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
you like behind the scenes who was like,
Scout already, yeah.
you were consistent enough. That's an amazing story. I really like that. How like you ended up on a main stage because someone was like, yeah, she's main stage material. Let's just do it. You know?
I
Definitely.
think that
so
that's
cool.
one of the cool things too. Like I remember that showing up to shows, and you'd see people that you'd performed with, like people that were either doing sound or they were roadies or whoever it may be, and this community was getting to know each other for being kind. And that's something that, like, the first thing, like when I first met you, I was like, man, you're just incredibly kind. And I
Yeah.
think that goes a long ways. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, just in humanity in general, caring for humanity, caring for each other. And that's why I say, like, it's one thing to know that you're really good at what you do, and then when you match that with being like an incredible human being, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
And so that's why people will go to bat for you, and they will speak on your behalf, is because you're the real deal. And that's the cool thing, and that's the rad thing that I think that I love about your social media, is showing
Yeah.
that as well. Is that when somebody sees you, because it's interesting, because the worst thing that you could ever do, I think, with a social media account or social media channels just in general, is, and I've asked even clients this, and I was like, so if I want to get to know you, I should be able to pretty much go to your social channel and get a good sense for who you are. And they say, no, that's not who we are.
That's the front.
Like that's usually, and they'll go, or either they say things like, well, that's just like the best bits, or it's like, or how they want people to perceive them. And so the unfortunate thing though is that that's where, when you go to a live show, then it's like, oh, I really don't know you, because you're not
Yeah.
getting. And I think that's the joy and the benefit of being able to utilize throughout this time all of the tools that we have at our fingertips, is to be able to add depth to our story, add depth to who we are. So when people look at the story of you, and that's what I did, was I wanted to find out about your story, and I wanted to go look at who you were. And chapter 1 was the first post, and it's like, oh, I get a little chance here in chapter 2, 3, and as you go through books, it's much like, sometimes in the first chapter you're like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm into this. And chapter 2, you're like, oh, it's actually picking up a little bit. And
Yeah.
chapter 3, you're like, oh, I got a little dark. And like chapter 4, you're like, oh, they're adding a bit of humor. But it's taking you through that journey. And there's nothing better than when you meet somebody like even for me, I was like, oh man, I really hope she's as awesome as she is. Like,
It's like if you meet
that's
somebody,
what I thought right away. And when I met you, I was like, oh yeah, she's like, that's awesome. And so that you're doing it well.
because it's
and I wanted
disappointing
to-
if it's not.
You're doing it well, because it is, and that's where people will. It's amazing because you know, you can really, like even that situation that you just shared there is that she saw something in you. She knew that what you like, that you're great at what you do, that you've like, again, phenomenal. But then when you match it with like, wow, they're actually a really good human. I want to choose, because you said like, why did she choose me? It's like there's a lot of reasons I could tell you why she chose you. And that's the thing, is that that's what I want to just encourage. Like, and I hope people are encouraged, and they will be encouraged by your story. That it's like you can be yourself, and that's good.
Can I ask a quick question then? So on the reverse side, Ashley, when Tyler just randomly reached out to you, how did you get to know him virtually? What did you think? Like, first impressions, because I can't have a first impression of Tyler. I've known him too long. Why'd you come over here? Why'd you say yes?
Top 3 dots, block.
Yeah. Report.
Yeah, you know, the whole thing. Well, I don't know. I just saw him as a friend. I think, you know, being blessed with social media, we get to know people. And Tyler, thankfully, came off very friendly. And he's just like that in person as well. So thank you for that.
You.
But
Now you need to get to know the real Tyler. I'm sorry.
yeah, now we're going home
Let's
early.
get to the real case.
But yeah, I'm just very thankful that his true personality shone through his messages, and so through that I saw him as a friend, and I don't know, really nothing more.
Even though I messaged you on both, because I was like, I don't know which one she checks, but I was like, I'm gonna get through no matter what.
Yeah, it's funny because
I was like, same copy paste, whichever, because I've noticed a few people will check one like way later, so I was like, I'm gonna send it to both just because it'll get to one of them.
yeah, it's funny. I noticed that too, and I was like, wait, and then so it kind of confused me for a bit. I was like, no, same person, same message, all good.
Same one. Yeah.
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 That's awesome.
He really wanted to reach me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that, honestly, what you're explaining there, though, like, and that's a great question, Josh, because it is the.
It's I want to know the opposite, because, you know, it's like I know Tyler very, very well, and it would be impossible for me to have that, like, unbiased look at how would he come off to someone who's never met him before.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of cool that we found Ashley pretty randomly. I mean, Tyler's like always looking up music stuff, so like, when was the first time you saw Ashley, Tyler?
It would have been before your tour in October, for sure. It was before that, but like, I don't think too much before that. Maybe a little, like maybe.
Did you realize she was like super local?
No, I didn't know that at first. I was just like, oh wow, she's really good, and made lots of videos, and then I didn't know you hadn't graduated yet. I thought you were like touring around and you were doing your thing and had been doing it for a while, which you had been, but and then you did that tour, and I was like, oh, that's pretty awesome, because you're playing so many different shows, and yeah, and then just recently you posted the other video, and I was like, wow, how did you get so good so fast? There's a few people actually that like you run into some people who are like prodigies, where it's just like they just like are kind of on a different level or learn things differently, you know what I mean? Like there's another person who, because you're one of those people to me that I've seen online, and another one, his name is Ashton Gleckman from Indianapolis, and he's a composer, filmmaker. He's worked under Hans Zimmer. He like makes his own movies, like, and he's like amazing. And I've learned like most of the MIDI stuff like it's been from his YouTube channel and stuff about instruments. And but yeah, he's one of those people too where it's just like, wow, how did you, like, where does it come from, you know? So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy how many talented people there are. And for you to think I'm among them, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
But and
Thanks
then
for coming
also, oh yeah, of course. And then also, it's funny. I grew up with the internet, but I'm still mind blown by the internet, right? Because it connects us with all these unknown talents.
Totally.
I just love that.
And you can work together with like people you never have been able to work together, and some voices just mix together so uniquely and cool. And like, I love working with different musicians on different things, because like even if you go to a different room, you'll make different songs.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I think that's one of the things that I, like you nailed it with social media, and not just social media, but the internet in general, that I absolutely adore, just the way that it's able to connect us just so seamlessly.
Totally.
And it's just able to bridge literally like so many different like avenues and just ways of us connecting together.
yeah.
I even know from, I mean, it's just insane to me that I can sit down and have tea with my friends in England and chat with them, and it's like, this is just so cool. Like
Totally.
such a neat way to continue to grow a relationship and get to know somebody. And I love how you said, like, you know, when I looked at him, he seemed kind, he was kind. And again, that's the power of like social media, is that it can do the reverse as well. And that's the coolest thing, is when you got to meet him in real life then too. It was like, wait a minute, he is this person. And that's when things are most effective, which is why I think it's so cool when I see artists taking advantage, and just not artists, but businesses in general, because you are a business, is taking advantage of the fact that they have this tool at their fingertips to constantly be engaging, to show who you are, with your audience, and that just grows, which is why I really adored, like, I loved that you posted about like that little, yeah, I'm just gonna take these couple songs, I'm gonna throw this together, so easy. And but it's like, but those are the things that to me, like, I'm like, oh man, like as a fan, like, and I am a fan,
awesome.
that like
Yeah.
I actually want to see that stuff.
Yeah.
So like I often think, like, that's why I ask, like, you know, like like you'll always get asked the questions like, who's your favorite artist and who's your blah blah, but it's like when you think about it, like
I asked you that question.
how rad would
It's
it,
okay, I
yeah,
loved it.
we cut that part out, so
Yeah.
you would never
No,
know.
no.
But it's like, but when you think about it, like getting the opportunity to have your word on like a favorite artist, like doing it, it'd be like, this is so cool, and it may mean the difference between fan for life and not. You never know. And then when they see you in real life, like, oh man, they're just as kind and amazing as they are. Like, that's where I think that like there is a huge benefit to artists today, and why their careers are able to advance much quicker.
Totally. Reaching back is huge, I think, because like I know for me, I've reached out, and there's some people who haven't, like, they don't respond, and it kind of gives you a feeling of just like, oh, I guess they're either too busy and they didn't see it, or they don't think it's like worth the time,
Yeah.
and then it makes you kind of like, oh.
Or like a different personality types, especially this year, like mental health. It's like I found a lot with performing. You're giving your energy out a lot, and if you don't get it back a certain way, like you need to find a way to kind of refill your tank. And if you're just kind of running on empty, it's hard to like be kind and engaging to every single person
Totally.
all the time.
Yeah, that was something that you mentioned, is like, you know, the live show of being able to see people like face to face, no fedora.
No,
Um,
yeah.
But it's like, so is that something that you enjoy then? Like when people reach out to you, like the communication aspect of chatting with people?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you start a relationship and, I don't know, make good connections. So I really appreciate in-person connections, especially when it's, you know, meeting them online and then in person. I don't like a disconnect. I don't think anyone does. So it's really cool to just see that face come to life, and then either meeting them strictly online or strictly in person. I just love connecting with people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes the world go round. We all meet each other and make good connections. So, I don't know. I'm
And-
just a big fan of the whole process.
It's always worth reaching out. Like Matt taught me to, like, they can only say no. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst that can happen, right? Like, you might as well reach out and try, right? And that's actually one of the reasons why I reached out to you. So it's like, oh, might as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like any idea now that I get, I'm just kind of like, oh, might as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and a lot of what you're saying, like, is today's, like, the reason why I'm kind of asking some of these questions, because it's incredibly valuable to other artists as well. And I've learned from you even today. Like, it even just seeing how you've grown up in just a different time where the internet is just, it is a part of your life,
yeah.
100% a part of your life. And so it makes it seamless. I remember there was arguments that we would have as bandmates, like, oh, who's going to post something? And it's like, oh, nobody wants to do this. Like, it just was like, we'd have arguments over it. Because it's like, no, what wins is writing. We have to write. And it's like, but nobody knows who we are. It's like, but we have to write. And it's like, but we will have time. Like, and I remember wasting so much time trying to get each other, and like, even the guys will even admit there's probably times where they were trying to get me on board with things because I never liked being in front of the camera.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
hard one for me.
I mean, a lot of people see it as a chore. And then, so there's the people that see it as a chore and don't want to do it. And then there's the people who have given me the advice of posting breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But you just have to know your audience,
Yep.
know what you like. What I've learned, especially in songwriting, is like before, like the first stuff I released was heavily influenced by country because my mom loves listening to country music. I can sing every song on country radio. I just know it by heart.
Like old country, new country. Can you give us a couple artist examples?
Well, Shania Twain, a whole bunch of her.
Oh, yeah.
Anything on the radio right now on like 93.7, I can sing every single song. So not too much old country, I don't think. But whatever the radio trends are for the past like 10 years or whatever. And then, sorry, where was I going? Oh yeah, so just you have to keep your audience in mind and then keep yourself in mind too. Because when I first released that, I, had the country roots, so it came out as a folk pop with
Yeah.
country influences. And then, but I wasn't country, and then people were like, oh, she sings country. And I'm like, I'm not country. And then, so from there, I was like, no, I need to tell people I'm not country because that's not the brand I want to put out. I'm putting out something else. So I released this pop song, Red Sneakers, which turned out to be an even bigger blessing than I thought it was. And then, so this song I wrote just as a quick tune. I was like, they're going to like this, they're going to love the beat, and Ashley Pater is no longer country. So this comes out, and everyone's like, oh, she sings pop now. All right, I can get on this. But then releasing that, I was like, well, that's not me though. Like, do I believe, like, I think those lyrics are cool. I think they're fun, but does it connect with me on a really deep level? Not really. That song I wrote about going on a walk with someone that I had a great relationship with, right? And so it definitely reminds me of a happy time, but to me, the kind of music I listen to, I want something deeper. So now it's like I have to connect what I think people want to hear, but I also have to connect with what I want me to be. And then...
So your performance comes out more authentic, and you
Yeah.
can really,
Yeah.
And
really
people feel
sing it
that.
out.
Definitely. But it's just finding that balance. Because you can't, if you're making music for yourself, you're making music for yourself.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that struggle.
That is a struggle. That's really mature of you already to kind of like reinvent yourself and be okay with it. Maybe some people would have been like, "Oh, this country thing, it's my fedora. I got to stick in country for a
Yeah.
while now." So, where are you going from here? What's coming up like new in the next little bit here?
And have you ever thought about getting into acting? That's one thing I wanted to ask.
I'm in acting.
You're in acting, because I was going to
Yeah,
say you're
did you
very
not see me with
emotive.
Tom Cruise? Or...
No. Well, I was gonna say you're very emotive when you sing and perform, right? And that lends itself super well to that. So you do acting?
Yeah, I dabble in everything. Along with playing a bunch of instruments, I act. I've been acting since I was, I think, 10. I've done a few commercials, and then I also model as well. But they're all kind of supporters to the main goal, music. But I think it's very good to be well-rounded.
Totally.
Like modeling, for example, just, the stereotype on modeling, they don't eat and they're stuck up and, all that matters is how you look.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I first got into modeling, that's totally what I thought. And I was like, okay, well, I'm short, so this isn't going to work.
Okay.
And then they taught how you have to be beautiful inside and out. It's about what's inside. And for them to teach that, I was like, oh, a modeling school teaching that you need to be a good person.
Wow.
But honestly, they were, and that totally blew me away. And then on the modeling, like the appearance side of things, just on how to pose and how to walk and those kind of things, it definitely helped me with my stage presence. And, I don't know, helped me put out the image that I want to be out there. So I really appreciated that training as well.
Yeah, it shows
Yeah.
for sure.
Very cool. So that's I really want to talk to you about your new song.
Okay.
And I want to
Me
kinda,
too. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it because we've been all of this has been leading up. I'm really excited to talk about it. So I want you to introduce talk about your new song, and also just kind of the bit of the story behind it.
Definitely. New single coming out March 22nd. Also doubles as my birthday.
Oh, that's awesome.
We love a birthday release.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's called Stuck on You, and I fully produced the song. So, spent my Corona musician woodshedding time making this song. And I'm very excited for the world to hear it. I got some exciting projects wrapped around it as well. A music video, an acoustic video shot by the lovely people at Pineapple Sound.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to have a lyric video with it as well.
Awesome.
So behind the song, I started it with a piano lick. It's what I play at the beginning of the song, and I was just playing that, and I ended up writing just the first verse. And then I was kind of like, I don't feel like finishing this song. I don't think I'm going to do this justice, so I'm going to leave it alone. I leave it alone for probably a week, and then, but I just love the piano licks. I couldn't stop playing it. So I'm playing it in the living room, and my dad's like, that song sounds like it should be in a musical. I was like, huh, okay, yeah, I see that. And then, so with that in mind, I was like, oh, okay, so now I want to finish this song. So my dad goes to bed. I finished the song just because I wanted it done. And I was like, okay, well, since I want it like this, it's just going to be like that. So then I wrote this, just let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I just wrote the song. And then the song, well, yeah, it kind of wrote itself. And so I was writing this song, going in this direction with the song, and then I picked the meaning from it afterwards.
I like doing that too.
Yeah, I
Yeah?
find I write a lot of songs like that.
So like, sorry to cut you off, but like, did you write like pretty much the whole thing? No, like, did you have a melody in mind or anything, or were you following just you were creating it like
Or
on the piano as
gibberish?
you went?
Singing
Yeah, was
gibberish?
it gibberish you're singing? Like, what did that look like?
So start with the piano lick.
Yep.
And then the first verse started in the Corona mindset, like, oh my gosh, life sucks. So I was like, like, I'm an extra in my own movie I call
Yeah.
life. And I was like, wow, poetic, that's beautiful. And then, so
She's
writing
like,
that,
I'm so deep.
I know, with that line, I was like, oh, okay.
I love it.
And then, so when I wrote that verse, and then I kind of had that vibe for the rest of the song.
Cool.
And then it just kind of flowed. And then I stuck my little songwriting structures in to be like, no, well, and then, I don't know, in like a half hour, I had the song.
Awesome.
And yeah, I was very happy with how it turned out. And then afterwards, I applied my own story to it. Because, you know, just from the first verse, yes, the song can be based off of it, but I need, you know, you gotta have a story with every song. So with that, I ended up writing about how, you know, it feels like you're living in a loop. You know, you're going through the same kind of relationships with people, and you want more, but you've now noticed you're starting to live in a loop and you don't like it. So then I wrote the chorus, and I wanted it to be something catchy and, you know, hooked back to itself. And then, so it ended up being stuck on a person. So it's like, oh, I go through this whole cycle of life, but I always end up coming back to you. You know,
Stuck
so
on
that
you.
kind of thing. Stuck on you.
That's awesome.
Just like the riff.
Yep.
Stuck on you.
Exactly.
It's so cool. Honestly, like, I love hearing the stories because that's one thing that, like, when you get a chance to even perform it too, it's one of the things that you were talking about, just learning how to be you on stage. And so hearing the story behind the song and people getting a chance to, like, you know, hear it and then being able to listen to the actual single on March 22nd on your birthday. And like, but those are the things that I adore as a fan. Like, I just absolutely love. We joked about it like years ago, like getting, like, you know, the cassette tape things and unwrapping them and wanting to read about the stories
Yeah.
of stuff and who did what and stuff, just to get a little taste of getting these kinds of stories was like what I just thrived on. So
Side
even-
question: Have you ever used a cassette tape?
Yeah, she doesn't even know what that is.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is that?
Yeah. She's like,
No, I know what it is. But no, I've never used them.
Damn
I've
it. You're not missing anything.
used it for decor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
Okay,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's got a nice aesthetic. So when you say
Yeah.
you produced this song yourself, how many instruments are you playing on this track?
Well, I'm playing piano on it, like actual piano.
Yeah.
And then everything else was just going through the MIDI.
Okay, like using VSTs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
what kind of, so as far as VSTs that you use, what's your favorite ones, like, and what did you use for the song?
Let me think.
I'm just gonna have a nap while you think about this.
We're keyboard people, Matt.
I know, I
We
love
want
it,
to know
I
the
love it.
programs.
It makes me. I love it. I love it.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I wonder.
Or even,
I
even
kind of
just
just
like
go
so
through
like
playing. That's the
strings,
one. and
bass,
then-
like which instruments, or what, like even just the types of instruments you decided to play virtually.
Oh yeah. Got a lot of bass.
Like synth bass?
Stop putting her on the spot.
Like I'd say 808 bass.
Okay.
Oh, like, there
Yeah,
we go.
we got
Yeah,
that.
oh,
we
Matt,
got that
mm.
bassy bass going, you know. And then, but somehow it has like a nice little muted sound, like a nice round.
Okay.
Honestly, I know that tone exactly.
Right?
I love that you're explaining it like this because I used to frustrate my bandmates all the time because they would ask the same thing. Oh, so what did you use? And I was like, I'm not sure. This just sounded really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
it just-
plunked it in, and they're
But
just
that's
like,
how
"Yeah,
the songs come together.
But they're like, but
I
tell
wanna
me
hear it.
like all this stuff, and I could not for the life of me. So honestly, I cannot thank you for sharing this enough because it makes me feel human. So then I was
Yeah.
like, I need the drums to go Pat Boone, Debbie Boone,
Yeah.
and they're like,
Because we
"What?"
have a
Like,
million choices these days. It's fun to hear how someone else creates. Like, so you just find a patch, you like the sound of it, and you'll just go with it for now and then change it later, kind of deal.
Yeah, totally. Well,
it's a fun way.
I know what the song sounds like in my head. Like
Yes.
when I play it, when I write it, I hear the production already. So then it's just a matter of making it come to life. And so depending on the song, but I think for this one, I just started laying down the piano. I just laid down the song how it is. I recorded a scratch vocal and then, you know, piano as well. Stuck it in, and then I worked on making the beat. I made this like really cool layered kick, and I was so proud of it. I was like, wow, this feels like it's in my chest, but it's like on speakers.
That's the
And
best.
then I threw in some bass, and I don't know, the whole thing just came together right before the chorus. I put like this nice swelling sound. I love transitions, and so just having that swell into the chorus
Yeah,
fit
nice
very
big-
nice.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of those. It's not like you jump up and down and pump your fist, but it's like you sway side to side with it and
That's
like
cool.
that kind of thing.
That's cool.
It's definitely. I love the songs where you can do some weird neck movements. You're like, oh yeah, like this kind of thing.
I'm a big
Maybe that's why
sway-
your shoulder's messed up.
I'm a
Yeah.
big- I like the
She's
6/8.
all shoulder movement.
Yeah.
Yep. But this song definitely, there's
That's
a little
awesome.
off sounding going off, and it just makes your neck go like, oh, all right.
That's
so
cool.
So
I'm looking forward to hearing your fully produced track. You did it all in your studio at home, right?
yes, I did.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Because it sounded great acoustic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have any advice for someone who's like at home wanting to record a couple songs? Like when you were just getting started, what would you suggest to someone? Like what do you think they need to just kind of like, okay, lay down some ideas?
Honestly, to push yourself to actually do it.
Yeah.
GarageBand is honestly fine. You whatever you have, just do it and literally just make yourself do it. Don't be afraid that you don't know how to do something.
Yeah.
Like me producing a song, I had no idea what to do. Like even listening back to the songs I've done, like I started listening back to the songs I've released that I've produced myself. I'm like, how did I make this? Like it just sounds so, oh, it's there and it's so complicated and I did
Yeah.
that? Like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
That is cool.
And then, so me just even thinking back of how I made the song, like when I was listening to it and this conversation kind of kicked it off, I was like, well, how did I do that? Like, you know, you hear it from, you're playing at the piano and now it's this big thing. Like my Christmas song, This Christmas, that started with another piano lick that I was just playing. I was like, well, you need something that makes it sound like you know how to play piano. And I wrote it, so I know how to play piano, and I wrote this thing, right? So I started playing it for a few things when there was like a lick challenge going around on Instagram. So I was like, ding, 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 like the intro of it. But that's all I had. And then when I was writing this Christmas song, I was like, you know, it'd be so cool. Just be really extra. Go ding, and then go like with my vocals and stuff. And then stick it on this song, and then go into this Christmas beat and throw in
Yeah.
the jingle bells and that kind of thing.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So when you're getting ready for songs, we were talking about this earlier with Tyler. You guys are all vocalists. I am not. Vocal warm-ups. What do you guys do before you do you just like Matt? You were saying today you weren't talking all day. You're trying to keep everything like, oh, I want to stay like
I was
focused.
totally joking, but not.
But like when you're getting ready to perform, did you guys have like a routine? Like before you go on stage, are you doing your scales? Are you doing your warm-up stuff?
I don't
or
like
is-
to talk to anybody. I like to kind of just be like, cause I'm usually nervous or like just ready to go. And I don't, as soon as I get up on stage, then the nerves are gone. It's like, yeah, I'm here. This is where I'm meant to be. But before it, I'm kind of like thinking of all this stuff. So I usually want to be alone. And I like doing just like the barn doors, us townie, like that, like doing the squeaky
ASMR.
sound. Yeah.
You're actually being serious?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know that. Sorry.
You kind of like do the squeak. Is that the Kings of Leon?
I did
I
not
said
know
that
that.
really weird.
Leon.
Kings of Leon.
Kings
Have
of
you heard of
Leon.
that?
Because we took vocal lessons.
I've been rolling around, always looking down, but all I see. So it's like that kind of technique, right? So it's a Cecile La Rochelle was my
Yeah,
vocal
she
coach. She's
taught us
awesome.
so much back
That's
in the
really
day.
cool.
Yeah, and then the dumb dog. Go 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 go. Yeah, in the actual proper scale. Proper scale.
But she basically, if you can hum it, you can sing it, and it was like teaching how to just even do the lip like.
And I actually want to make a video about this, but like one of my favorite things that I learned was to treat my lungs like a bagpipe instead of like never lose all your air. So like you take it all in, and then when you're singing, you'll be depleting some air. But then when you replenish it, just do like a quick breath, kind of like what you do before you say by the way, like by the way, oh by the way, right? So you're singing and just quick little fill it back up, and you never let it, and you keep your ribs out, right? Diaphragm, and then just fill it back up, and then because when you get to the end, you start to get that kind of waver out. I found, anyways.
And stuff like you're not singing higher, you're singing further.
Yeah.
Imagining your notes not like tensing up when you're getting up into the higher ranges. It's neat the ways to visualize it. I just
Yeah,
wondered if
I'm
Yeah.
actually like learning as we go.
Are
here.
you?
Yeah.
Well, you got a great voice. I'm amazed that you don't do those because your voice sounds great.
you know,
And when Matt talks about his recording skills and like him working, he makes it sound like he's not good. But if you hear his CD, it's like it sounds awesome.
what do you do for warm-ups?
Do you not have warm-ups?
Let's figure yours out first.
I totally do, but I want to hear yours first. Oh yeah, mine are the same.
Might not be this cool, so I gotta share those.
Oh yeah,
It's
those.
a mix of
they're
both,
not
actually.
supposed
Oh yeah,
to be
those were mine. I
cool.
do those ones.
Yeah.
Warm-ups are not cool. Tyler and I, the car rides, getting ready for gigs. Like some people didn't want to go in the same cars if Tyler has to warm up the whole way there.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, that was after the warm ups too.
Aw. I'm sorry.
What were your warm ups?
Yeah, I do a mix of them. I mean the raspberries, right? And then I usually do because I like testing my breath too. So I'll do like
Like a.
yeah, like oh.
Oh.
No one's gonna want to talk to me.
That's why I sing. So it's not a problem. But yeah, I'll do raspberries like I don't know if I can do it with a mouth like no I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the way up like a whole C scale and I'll do it like 3 times and then go up all in one breath. Not all of it in one breath, but you know. And then also doing just to try to warm up your lips and your words. What I sang to you the other day, like a bo ba 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 boo ba bee ba 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 bo ba 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 like that kind of thing. And also some sliding of notes, just like sliding of the octaves. And I don't know, that's pretty much it. I'm really bad at scheduling my warm-ups. So it'll either be an hour before, I'm like, oh great, I have time, let's warm up. But I'm like, I'm not gonna warm up now, why am I gonna do that?
Yeah.
And then so it would be like right before stage and I'm like, oh crap. And then,
You gotta cram before the day of the test. Like,
yeah,
oh no.
exactly. I do that too. And then I also warm down after every time
I
I
was
sing.
gonna
Oh,
ask you
smart.
that.
Yeah.
I never did that, and that's supposed to be super
Yeah.
important.
So,
He's like just
No one told me.
Yeah, the drive home, he's like, guys, let's just go to town.
You guys want to warm down now? Yeah. Can we record it so I can listen later?
Yeah, we have a 6-hour drive, guys. Here we go.
Warming down.
Turn on the
all way.
walkie-talkie. Let's hear. Let Fody hear it.
Yeah.
oh boy.
That's awesome. No, I learned. Well, there's a couple things I've already learned from you guys, but I grew up with a dad that would teach me, like, because he was a singer, and classically trained, and taught me that we'd go back and we'd be practicing things, and interestingly enough, as I got older as a musician, I was like, oh, he doesn't know anything, and did my own thing, and then decided to pay a lot of money to go to vocal coaches that were teaching me what my dad taught me. But I realized that what had happened was I developed bad habits based off things that you're told, which is, you know, I remember it's like, you know, you stick out your chest and you stand up strong, like not as a musician, just as a human being. Guys are supposed to stick out their chest and blah, blah, and you don't like fully fill your diaphragm and you're not actually breathing. And I've always been able to hold my breath a very long time. I have a huge range when it comes to singing. So that's always been something too that's been a bit different for me, is that I remember going to different, like, I won't even say them just because they're different, like, you know, vocal coaches this, and I'd be like, you can't sing the way that I sing like that. Like, that's just that's impossible. Like, you actually have to do this. So what I started realizing was that I had to start breaking bad habits. And the first one I realized is that I cannot stand drinking water. Hate water. Never drink water.
No way.
Yeah. You drink it and then you got to pee. So who likes that?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have
I
time for
got
that.
Why drink anything?
I got
Yeah,
way
right?
more. I got way more things to do with my time.
Yeah.
So I found it very, very frustrating that I was like
let
right
it
away. So
go.
like, you got to start drinking water, and I realized and I was like, well, why? And they're like, well, you know, your vocal cords are a muscle. And then they say things like, you know, to try to convince me to drink water. It's like, you know, when you drink water, it's the last thing to get the water. Trying to guilt me into like drinking water, right? So that was something that I tried to like break that habit, was to get into drinking water to make sure that I was that. I also was very, very hyper aware of my breathing while I was singing. I did do things like raspberry, like all that kind of stuff, like to kind of warm up the vocals and just this. And as my career progressed, because I like I said, like I was singing very very broad range of where I could sing. Like majority of times I can sing most of what girls can sing easily. And then I started realizing if I actually started changing up my set list, that I could utilize my set list as
Yeah.
to my advantage. And so I started actually being a lot more strategic in the way that I set up my set lists and the way that we set up, even the way that I was breathing and focusing a lot more on my breathing when it came to it, and realizing I was doing less warm-ups, being a million times more effective in my singing, and being able to sing 50 times as long. And then what I found was the number one thing that I was anal about that ended up being a huge detriment to me is talking is harder than singing.
Yeah.
And so even now with these masks, because my job requires me to talk, I don't, the masks, I'm 100% like totally fine. But at the end of the day, because I haven't been singing, my chops are definitely not there. I will find that my throat is so sore from just talking, but I could sing for days. And so I learned, again, because probably it's back to improper breathing. I'm not thinking about it. I'm also trying to sometimes shout, whereas when I'm singing, I'm not shouting. I'm not doing that, even though I'm singing aggressive or whatever it may be. But I realized a lot of it came down to like it wasn't just here's the one little simple thing that's going to help me to be successful. It was like that's why there's little things you just said that I'm definitely going to remember, and same with yours. So I was trying to just put these things together, and it cost a lot of money to hear some of these things.
Yeah.
But I remember coming back being like, well, my dad was right, that it, like, you know, it's on breathing. And it's interesting because I remember being told, I think it was my dad that probably told me, but it was like, you know, when you lay a newborn down and you look at a newborn, how come a newborn can scream forever and they don't lose their voice? And then you go and sing one song and you're like, oh, my voice is shot. There's a reason.
Yeah.
And if you watch a baby breathe, what moves? And it's not their chest moving, it's their diaphragm, and they can do it for days because they're utilizing their breathing. And I was like, man, that's insane. So like, it was just, how do I then break my bad habits?
Yeah.
And that's what I spent most of my career focusing on, was once I recognized those bad habits, was acknowledging them, and I was realizing I was writing them into the way that I was singing. So I would, because of the fact that like I wanted to be me, and so singing, and like, you know how you were saying you were doing these like Kings of Leon or Leon or whatever, however you said it, but those little things, I always knew that like I had a very clean voice, and so like I rarely used vibrato. If I was hitting a note and it was going for it, I was holding that exact note the entire time. I wasn't using vibrato to like just kind of pat it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hitting it or I'm not. I'm going for it. And I realized that came down to breathing and all those things, but it was I can't do that Kings of Leon. Like, I just wish I could, but I can't. I'd have to sing down to get into there, and it just doesn't work for me. So then I was like, well, I guess I just got to embrace who I am, and and figure out what works best, which was, to me, the biggest thing that I learned. And I actually, like, because I was the same thing, like, do I start warming up an hour before? Because now I'm going to annoy everybody. And I realized talking was the worst, and talking after the show. And that really sucks, when I really enjoyed that aspect of being able to say, thank you, that's amazing you came to the show. I honestly can't believe you paid to come see me. I just feel absolutely blessed. Like, I like to be able to say thank you, because I enjoy it. But when you're
Especially
yelling,
if you had bullied them.
oh my
earlier
God.
in
But
the
when you're
past.
yelling in a club, or you're yelling in an environment, like, part of me wants to just be like, just shut the music off.
Yeah.
Let us talk for a second.
Let's chat.
I've
and
been
like-
that DJ and I'm never turning it down.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped to play the song.
And there's times too where I would actually end the set, like, because I lived with earplugs in all the time. So like, I always, like, we ran in-ears all the time, and if I didn't have in-ears, I was always having earplugs like in that were like set so that they're about 25 dB below or 10 right, adjust them as we go. And then after a show, boom, they instantly would go in. So people would talk to me and be like, but I have to really, and I forget that they're in, because I'm like, I'm trying to save my ears.
Yeah.
Right, like, but
Yeah.
then you'd have to shout to be heard. And do you guys get that? Like, that talking sometimes
Yeah, I
is
did.
harder.
It's well, yeah. If you're talking over loud music,
Yeah,
then it's gets tiring for sure.
but I
For-
mean, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For me, naturally, I speak quieter. So I guess that's kind of a blessing in disguise.
helps,
But
yeah.
also, my parents don't appreciate it because they can't hear me.
Huh?
But naturally, I guess it's part of being very chill. My voice is just, it's down here. And then, so what's kind of funny though is when we're checking the mic, I'll be talking into it, right?
and they turn it way up.
Yeah. So there's my talking voice, and then there's my stage talking voice, and then there's my singing voice. And so when I sing, it's a lot louder than when I'm just talking right now. And then if I'm, announcing or something like that, then it's definitely louder than my talking voice. But my talking level and my singing level are very different. So, poor mixer.
No, it's true, because you also learn too. I remember always being like, okay, like, whatever the mic's at, like, when I get excited, it's going to be a lot louder. Like,
And you get used to pulling,
and then
doing that.
yeah, and it was like you learned how to really like, play with the microphone to your advantage as well. But I did learn that. Yes, I was also like, to this day, like, you'll see a lot of times I come in with a scarf or something on, because I've always been hypersensitive to warm, to having my throat warm always. So that was a tough one too. Like why I never ever really liked winter touring was just like you'd sing and then it's like the only place that some people are like, oh, let's go outside and have a smoke or something. Like, I'm not going out there. Like it's too cold. Like, and I also don't want to be around. That's the other thing I noticed too is I was dramatically affected. I could feel smoke machines in my throat. And
Oh, I totally feel that. Yeah.
it killed.
AC, air conditioning too.
Yeah.
But it makes the lights look so much better.
It does.
It's worth
It looks
It's
so.
worth it.
It looks so cool, but it was like that stuff really,
It's worth it.
really impacts my vocals as well. It did so.
That's why you gotta use the special ones.
Yeah, the
They have-
water-based haze
yeah, they
machines.
have the special smoke.
Yeah,
Oh, no, we just got people to get like
it's more expensive.
yeah,
Yeah.
e-cigarette,
They just rip 'em,
e-cigarettes.
yeah.
They're
Vape
just
juice,
like
yeah.
vaping the whole time. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Yeah. They like me. They
Yeah.
really
That's why they
like
got
me.
half off their ticket, right?
Oh my goodness,
They're
yeah.
the smoke machine.
That's awesome.
I was
And-
kind of hoping to play one of your songs for the listeners. Which one would you like?
Surprise me.
Surprise you? Okay.
Yeah. Surprise them.
Okay.
Well, of course they're gonna be surprised. They don't know what's happening.
Okay, well, we'll surprise you in 3, 2, 1.
I just wanna be the one who makes them fall in love at the drop of a hand. When I strum a chord, I wanna tell mama, hey mama, baby. I don't wanna be happy just for the cause, or they'll tell everybody like I've lost a little something. I did nothing without you. And I should've told you from the start. And I knew that it would all fall apart without you. The days are getting colder, and the nights are lonely too. With you, I'd be staying a little longer, but the time's cutting close. I'm thinking you should know that I've never thought about the best things in my life without you. How did it ever cross my mind? I've been 100 times without telling you. And I've had enough, you got me wanting more. From that look in your eye to my guitar wanted something where nothing was due. And I know I'm better and safer inside or alone. Got somebody else on your telephone. What was I wishing and scrubbing these handprints off my face? And I should've told you from the start. And I knew that it would all fall apart without you. The days are getting colder, and the nights are lonely too. With you, I'd be staying a little longer, but the time's cutting close. I'm thinking you should know that I've never thought about the best things in my life without you. How did it ever cross my mind about 100 times without telling you that I've never thought about the best things in my life without you? How did it ever cross my mind about 100 times without telling you?
Okay, well, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Any advice you can give?
Yeah,
For the
totally.
listeners?
To be safe. I mean, as we are clearly being COVID safe, of course, but to also be safe out there in the world. This industry, there are so many opportunities and so many that are bogus as well. So you have to watch out for that. As we were talking about earlier, you gotta see, which ones you should invest your time in. And also, I don't know, just being aware of your surroundings, and not setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like thinking ahead and
Yeah.
thinking of what, like, not always assuming the worst, but being ready for it, just in case.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I think that like I mean, one of the things for us even too, like having you come in today, like we were like really excited. The first thing I said was like, oh, I guess like she's gonna bring along her dad with her, like, and it's interesting because, when you think about shows and touring and the places, like, I mean, we've talked about how like when you're slugging it out, going from show to show to show, you don't know what to expect. You've maybe met a promoter online or something and booked something with them. You don't know who they are. You don't know. And I remember the days of like watching guys get in arguments at the end of a night because they were promised that they were going to get a certain amount of money and this and that. It's like, well, I only know what it looked like for us, and I know that it was difficult even then, and I was super appreciative that we had like people on our team that took care of, like, we all had different roles, but we had rules as well. And like I was very adamant when we toured as a group that we toured, it was always two, like in ours. You never did anything alone. And I had heard way too many stories, and I also do like I have the honor of being able to be married to my best friend, and like she's been my best friend since she was 15. I was 17, and to me, like, I would never do anything in my life to ever jeopardize that relationship. And so when we left for tour, I knew that I could control myself, but I couldn't control anybody else. So what is that? And you're talking about like planning ahead and what does that look like? And it's like, for us, it was, okay, well, we're staying in hotels where sometimes like literally our rooms were right above where we had just played. So people would follow us back to our rooms. And like, I remember there's nights where I remember like there was people in our hotel room, and I don't know how they got in there. I'm like, I'm not going in. And thank goodness that we had guys that agreed and were there with us. And we never, like, I never wanted to be in a position where somebody could ever say like, well, you're lying, this is what happened. And I think that that's a really smart thing to talk about, whether you're a solo artist or whether you're with a band. Also picking and choosing who's in your band, being very cautious. It's one thing to choose the best musicians. It's another to make sure you figure out
The best people.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I really did appreciate that your dad came along, and it's like, for me, like, I have daughters, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for them, as well as be there for them as sometimes to remind them. It's like, okay, let's just be aware. And unfortunately, when there's things online sometimes, how do you know?
Have you
Like-
been in a situation where you're like, oh, oops, we're never booking here again?
Well, thankfully, I haven't had any like bad situations. I've definitely had a good share of creepy people online.
Yeah.
But and there are some venues that I wouldn't necessarily go back, but not because it's a danger or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Just
so
didn't
I've
like
been
the vibe.
very lucky. Yeah, definitely.
How did you handle the ones online?
Online, yeah, because
It's kind of like not even thanks for saying that, but okay.
yeah, well,
Like,
I see
I don't
those.
know.
I see them
Yeah.
on your streams and stuff like that. And sometimes I'm like,
Yeah, there's, they're nice, but then they're too nice, and then you're like, I've recently come up with a way to respond to a bunch of messages. Like before, I'll admit my game at responding was pretty weak. I would get to a bunch of messages, but I wasn't getting to all of them. And so now I've been able to dedicate some time to be able to go through them all. So now I've been able to answer them all. I don't know how, but
Yeah.
somehow I did. So quite proud of myself for that. But then there's some people where they just want to know too much.
yeah.
And it's nice that they care. I get where they're coming from. They're like, oh, like, what are you doing? That's fine. I'm in the studio. I'm making a song. But then when they're like, oh, where do you live? Oh, that's fine. I'm from Vancouver.
What, the GPS
Who lives in your
yeah.
house?
What?
Why am I going to tell you that?
That's getting a
Right?
little.
Do you get milk delivered
So-
to the
Do you have a
door?
security
Yeah.
system?
Exactly.
How many
Right? What's your
cameras?
password? Like, and then to them, they just think they're your best friend. And yes, we're definitely all friends, but it's just everyone has to be safe on both ends. I'm not going to
Yeah.
ask you, what your alarm code is or something like
Yeah.
that. So,
It's Tyler's phone number. I'm sorry, everybody.
yeah.
Do-do-do.
Dang it.
Yeah.
But we don't know that.
Yeah.
But also, not to say that you should be scared.
Yeah.
I think being scared also wrecks a lot of opportunities. You just have to be able to mark which ones are which is very hard to do. But I don't know. Do you have any advice on that?
Like, honestly, I think that it's fantastic that you brought it up, because
It's
I do
important.
think it's smart for people to, guys, girls, like, just folks.
Yeah,
Like, they need to
definitely.
be very, very smart with, like, and then that's something that I do have to say that, like, we ran into issues with it. And I was very, very pleased that we were encouraged to kind of, for lack of a better word to choose, was like a buddy system. Because it definitely covered our asses, because there was a lot of times where I know I would have been like, even if it's like, we got to go to the washroom, sorry man, I'm not kind of like, let's go together. So it's not like, because there is a lot of situations you can only control yourself, but you can't control anybody else.
It's true.
And that's where I just never wanted to be in a position. I would never put my relationship with my family in that place ever. And I really appreciate it, because there was times where I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. And it was I'd show up something like, no, not comfortable with that. And I think one of the things that I would encourage people to, and this is something that I talk to my daughters quite a bit about, is talk about bravery and practicing bravery. And what does bravery? It's something that is core value of ours, and that means that what does bravery look like in action? It's not just saying it, but in action. And I'm not talking about the bravery of like, I overcame that fear and I did that. Like, that's different. I'm talking about trusting your gut, which is what you're talking about. When something doesn't feel right, that you trust your gut.
Yeah.
And that's the bravery, when it's like everyone else like, just do it. And you're like, but my gut's saying no. So I'm saying no.
Yeah.
And it's hard, because what if 6, and I've talked to my daughter who's 7, it's like, yeah, but what if like 5 of your friends are like, do it, just do it. Come on, just do it. And your gut is saying no.
Yeah.
It takes bravery. That's the bravery I'm talking about, is when your gut's like, I'm not doing it. And there was many times where I experienced that on tour, where there was people and it's like, no, this is not feeling right. And yes, there was moments that we had to pass up on great opportunities because it just did not feel right. And I think people need to be aware of that, right?
Definitely.
Like that ultimately it's like your safety comes first. And I think that follows. I love that you brought that up and even talked about online, because I do think that there's that's where that connection, where people are really, they're now in your home on your device, and it's like, wait a minute, you're like, okay, you got to learn that like there are healthy boundaries to be set.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important.
So practicing those healthy boundaries, and like, I'm really thankful that you brought that up.
Yeah, because you can't, you just never know, right?
Yeah, I think it's also part of the behind the scenes thing, right? Like, yes, we talk about what it's like to write songs and all this kind of stuff, but that also comes with it, and everybody experiences it too, but no one provides insight on it.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
music does something to people too, and like when you listen to someone's voice and like you can get attached to it, like some people can like feel like some of my favorite artists, like I feel like not like I'm in love with them, but like I feel a love for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
totally.
like my friends, and like I got a lot of love in there to give, and I'll put it out to everybody. And like, even if an artist passed away that I care about, I'll cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things where, but then it can take that unhealthy for some people if they don't have those checks in place, where they're like, oh, this is an unhealthy feeling, like.
Yeah. I mean, a love for an artist, and I totally get that, because sharing music is probably one of the most emotional things, right? And then especially when you have a love for it. But then it's just kind of like drawing that line. But I think there's a very big difference, It's either you're there or you're not there. So, I don't know, luckily a lot of people, have the respect for it, and, I don't know, don't cross the bad law.
I will say too that like, I'm very aware of the fact that like, I am a guy going into these situations, and you are a woman going into these situations, and it is completely different for you. And there wasn't a lot of times when we went on tour and there were other women on tour, and I remember like a couple bands had a couple girls in, like, and talking about the challenges of even like, yeah, there's no place for us to change or to go to another
Didn't you mention,
washroom,
Ashley, one of the
or-
places that your green room was a bathroom?
Yeah, my green room was the women's washroom.
Yeah, see,
So-
and that's the thing is like, I'm like, as an artist, like at the time, I remember just being like, I'm not okay with this, and they're like, well, it is what it is. I'm like, well, then it's got to change. But we didn't have any women in our band, so it just like fluked out to work that way. But then it did. Like, I remember just thinking like, wow, that's not even something that we've had to think about, which is why I appreciate you bringing it up, because I think that it's our responsibility as a community to look out for each other as well, and to also say like, that's not right, right? Like people need, like, it doesn't matter if you're like who you are, if you don't feel comfortable in a situation, like, you shouldn't have to be put in that situation. So that's where I think that talking about these things, bringing them up and keeping things aware, because I know even, it was interesting, I was just listening to Billie Eilish chatting with Dax Shepard on his podcast, and I think she was mentioning something about, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was like how the time when she had to deal with the most kind of creepy people, I guess I think was the kind of the word that she used, was not when she was massive, because they now have money for security. It was when she was just getting kind of known. She was like 14, 15, no money for security. And she was like, yeah, I'm on social media. And she said something that she's like, we're going for tacos here. And all of a sudden, like, people were like after her for coming there, because it was like, uh-oh. And I was like, man, like, I never experienced that in my life, and I was like, I just felt so bad for her because she just was this being innocent, writing great music and wanting to just share her love for going for a good taco, and then I was like, I really hope people are looking out for her.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that like we all need to like step it up as a community to really support one another for safety. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think it applies to everyone, right? Because I don't know, every situation comes in all shapes and sizes. So I don't know. I just think we all need to be self-aware as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, just to support each other.
For sure. I think it's good. I honestly think that's really good because I do, again, like as you were talking, I was like, oh my goodness, like I've just completely, out of stupidity, just missed the complete opposite, or like the obvious as well, is that you're a female. Like, and then I realized that like ultimately as well, like just folks that just however they like, so whatever they affiliate themselves and associate, like it's just like, and that ever, I just didn't have that feeling when I was on the road, except for those moments of like, why is there somebody saying my hotel? Or these people will not leave us alone as we're loading gear. And it's like, now it's getting like, but we had the buddy rule. But I was just thinking like, that's where like, if you go like, and I think you said your dad, like he comes on majority of the stuff with you. Is that right? Usually?
Yes.
As much as possible, I
Yeah.
would assume. Do you have somebody like, cause like that would be a huge thing, is having like, that would be the buddy rule pretty much thing. Right. But yeah, you're right. Like,
I guess when you're playing in the band, that's a nicer time, right? Because you got the whole gang with you, right?
It is. It
Yeah.
isn't. It isn't though, because we had some
Yeah.
major shit go down with guys in the band that I didn't know. Like when I'd go to sleep, it's like I'd wake up and find stuff. Like when we come home from tour, it's like, wait, what? And then I took it on because I was like, wait, I was supposed to be kind of managing stuff. So again, it goes back to like, you can have great. I think some of it that I learned too is that I would skip over getting to know who somebody is because of what they could do. Oh, they're just so good at this, and so I would skip over getting to know who they really were, and then all of a sudden I'd find out like major shit that went down that now caused me to not sleep and made me very, very sick because I don't associate with people like this.
Yeah.
And now I had made the choice to get into a contract with them, to be in a band, to be doing an album, to be touring that album, to be doing these things, to find out that it's like literally I want to rip your face off feeling in my soul because I cannot believe that you're this kind of a human being. And it was like I should have
Disappointing.
just spent a little bit more time.
Yeah, just get to know them.
Yeah, but you again, you skip over things because you're just like, well, we need to get on the road, we need to get touring, like we'll just take these people, and it's like they seem nice, it's like, well, they're nice now, but
Yeah,
like
there's no space in the schedule to get to know them.
no, there isn't,
Yeah.
right? I totally, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like, and then once I did, I was like, uh-oh. And so then actually that was why people would ask like a lot of times like, oh, why are there so many versions of Yucca? And it was like, oh, there's stories behind each one. And they're like phenomenal.
You're gonna see the Netflix documentary in just a few years. The Cold Case
phenomenal
Files.
musicians and stuff. But again, like it doesn't like, it's just the more that you get to know people. Like I said, like I don't have the story of you guys like where it's like, yeah, we were friends in elementary school, went to
Yeah.
high school, so you got to know each other as human
Yeah.
beings, and then grew. This was, hey, they auditioned, they're in the band, they're phenomenal musicians, and then it was like, oh, maybe we should have gotten to know each other a little bit more. And that was actually one thing that I learned as the years went on, is like, stop choosing people that were just unbelievable musicians. It was more important to have somebody that wasn't as good as a musician but was a good human being.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And in the end, I ended up getting two guys, because we went from a 4-piece to a 3, but in the end I ended up getting easily one of the best drummers in the world and one of the best bass players in the world. So, and they are unbelievable people. And I had known the bass player since, it's funny because I had known him since I was like a teenager. I just never thought he'd want to play in a band with me. And then when we finally approached him, he's like, yeah, I was really wishing that you would have asked me.
That's
I'm like,
hilarious.
what? Come on, man. Like, much like asking you, I'm like, why didn't you
Yeah.
come up and say
Yeah,
hi?
why did
Like,
you say hey?
But I would say that's one thing that I would recommend to people that are looking to start a band or to get people to join them for their touring, is to don't be just so fixated on how incredible they are as a musician, but you really need to have some sort of way of vetting. And again, that bravery, like trusting your gut. Like
You
if
got to
somebody
bring
wa-
him on your podcast and really grill him.
Yeah, or it's like
Exactly.
I think if I would have actually been like, I've only been learning about this whole aspect of trusting your gut and really going through it. I mean, I trust my wife, and like when we would travel, I would always say, if ever your gut says something, it gets a check, I will never second guess that. We're out of there, because she's just phenomenal at practicing that bravery, and it's something that I needed to work on, because you'd be like, no, they're not that bad of like.
Yeah.
I'd always be like, no, they can't be that, like they can't really mean that, can they?
I
And
am
then
like that too.
screwed me over a lot, and I'm realizing now that it's actually okay. Like I was always trying to please people and always be everybody's best friend instead of actually just saying some of the stuff as it was. And so I made bad decisions, and instead of listening to my gut when it was saying this isn't good.
That would be my advice too. It's like just speak up and like don't just try to be nice, you know. Like that was my big thing too. I just this, you know, it'll get better. And I don't
Yeah,
really
you
want
want
to
to
fight
offend
about
anyone.
it. I don't like and I don't want to fight. I'm not confrontational really.
Yeah.
You know. So
Yeah.
I mean, but back to the getting to know musicians and stuff like that. There's this saying that pops in and out of our household, but like being a musician or an entertainer, it's a whole package, right? Talent is only a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, knowing that it's a business and knowing, you know, like stage presence and all those kind of things build up, but also being a good person is probably this much of that, right?
Trustworthy and kind.
Yeah, so it's all comes down to being a good human being. So
Yeah, it really does.
I think it's nice how everything intertwines, though.
Yeah.
You know, every profession, doesn't matter what you're in, it all comes down to being a good person.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Right?
challenging when you see people progress. Like I know for myself, like seeing people progress farther in their career being an asshole. Then it was like, oh, because like when we watch movies, we root for the man in black, the person in black, right? Like we don't go for like the, you know, the sidekick buddy that's incredible.
It's true.
Yep.
It's always like,
Yeah.
oh, the person that's like abusing everybody and taking advantage of their friends and doing this and blah, blah, but in the end, they're the hero. And it's like, you know, like that's the person that we all want to be for some odd reason. But that like silent, consistent, amazing, balanced, healthy friend just gets kind of like
We all got to be Watson.
thrown off to the wayside, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I remember like, it's one thing, like, I agree with you. Like, I really wish somebody said like, you know, it's okay to say that you don't like that band. And I'd be like, what? Because I would desperately be, I was a people pleaser for sure. And I, even in interviews, remember being like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, blah, and they'd ask me a question. I just wanted to now just say like, I'm just not into it. And be okay with saying that. And being like, you know, like being able to have an opinion. Like that's what makes you, you, is being able to be you and be 100% authentically transparent, empathetic you.
Yeah.
And don't do it for like, I was tonight, just before bed, I was talking to my daughter and I was saying, sweetie, I really want to just keep talking and communicating with you as much as possible. She's 7 years old. And I said, I really just, please don't say things that you think I want to hear. Just be you. Don't be afraid. It's not, I know you love me. So when you say something, it's not going to offend me because I know you would never say something to intentionally offend me.
Yeah.
Because that's not who you are. Like deep down, she is such a kind-hearted. So she might do an action where she, you know, doesn't listen or she's like this. That doesn't mean she's a bad person. She just has an action at that moment that is just not of her.
Slip up.
Yeah, but I just want her to be herself. I don't want her to say things like even today. I was like, don't say things that you think I want to hear. You just be you, because that's who I'm excited to get to know is you. And that's one thing that I really, we talked about that in the first podcast. That I like, I'm just man, I really wish I would have gone back and just been like more confident in. And again, I think part of it is growing up. Right?
Confident
It's
and
like,
open.
Yeah, confident, open, and like the way that I think now. I wish that I was your age, and think.
Hindsight.
Yeah.
It's 2020.
And that I had better hips because
Yeah.
these hips are sore.
And they
Oh,
don't.
And
I'm
loud.
thinking like
Kidding.
Shakira.
They're
like,
really
what?
And I'm starting to feel you, boy.
And better hips.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming out and doing this podcast with us.
Really
Of
appreciate
course.
it.
Thank you for having me.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, where can people find you?
All over the place. And ashleypater.com, which is spelled later, except the L is a P.
Perfect.
Yeah, definitely go check her out on Instagram, Facebook, wherever. TikTok is awesome as well. But when you find it, you're going to love it and you'll be a fan for life. So thank
And-
you so much for joining us.
And one last time, the single comes out on Monday the 22nd.
That's correct.
And shortly after, some acoustic songs
Yeah,
recorded
some
here.
really cool projects.
Big stuff coming.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Happy birthday on the 22nd.
Yeah, happy
Thank
early
you.
birthday.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you around.
Do you do like a little...
Cue the music.